So today we have discussion on Union Budget 2025. I straightforward invite yogis to please first discuss the figures and facts related to the Union Budget 2025, and then provisions related to direct taxes. Later, Siddharth will discuss the proposed provisions related to the indirect taxes. Yogis.
Thank you, sir. Okay, budget. Every year it comes. What do you think? What is budget? And sources of income of the government of India and how the funds are allocated by the government into the various schemes. Okay, before I jump on to what is budget, what have you heard so far and what are the top 10 amendments that have been proposed? Number one, shoot.
Debate has been increased to 60,000, which has resulted in tax income of 12 lakh.
Second,
Mudra loan has been increased to 2 to 5.
third,
Come
again.
MSME classification.
The limits have been changed. Fourth, not really sitting at 50,000 per month or fifth, sixth, the limit has increased to
194A, limit of 50,000 increased to 1 lakh.
TDS provisions have been revamped and rationalized, and various limits under the TDS sections have been increased. Seventh,
Anything under insurance sector?
100%
in the insurance sector. Eighth,
Nuclear power?
New AI-based schools.
Startups. Limit what? किस चीज के लिए? Establishment of a company to start doing business under startup has been increased from 24 to 2030. So any company established up to 1st April 2030 will be regarded as eligible startup, provided all the other conditions are fulfilled. Ninth, it's not LRS. LRS is always 250,000 US dollars. The limit for collecting TCS on LRS has been enhanced from 7 lakhs to 10 lakhs. Last
Long-term capital gain on FII
has been
increased from 10% to 12.5%.
12.5%. That is just a amendment made in line with what was made in the last time. हो गया budget over. So let's come to the facts and figures first. Okay, this is the total size of the budget of Government of India. This is the balance sheet, kind of a balance sheet or a budget revenue statement of Government of India, which shows that the total, the estimated receipts for financial year 25-26 is 50 lakh crore, right? And the total expenditure is greater than 50 lakhs crore, which will result into a fiscal deficit of 15 lakh 68,000, which is 4.4% of the GDP. So if we just go line by line, what it shows is number one is revenue receipts. Second is capital receipt. Revenue receipt are tax and non-tax, all those revenues. And capital receipts like our bad debts or any borrowings or any divestment made by the Government of India in the PSUs, all those comes into the form of capital receipts. So for financial year 24-25, which will just end after 1.5 months, the total receipts estimated is 47 lakh 16 crores, and this has been revised upward by 3 lakh crore to become 50 lakh 65,000 crores. Okay. Now total expenditure, there are three heads: capital expenditure, interest expenditure, and revenue expenditure. Capital expenditure is, of course, all the infrastructure project, the defense sector, all those economies, all those ministries. So the total capital expenditure is from 13 lakh crore to 15 lakh crore. Interest expenditure is 1 lakh crore to 12 lakh crore. What is interest expenditure? Government of India also does a lot of borrowings and they have to pay interest. For example, very common is public provident fund. We invest money into public provident fund and have interest, or national savings certificates. All those kind of are all interest expenditure which government pays to us. Government also floats bond. So interest expenditure on all those items, and then the revenue expenditure, whatever other than the infrastructure projects, whatever expenditure it incurs for the maintenance of the economy, giving of pensions, other salary to the government officers, all those things falls part of the revenue expenditure. So this gives us a fiscal deficit. So fiscal deficit for financial year 24-25 is estimated to be 4.8% of GDP. What is fiscal deficit? It is excess of expenditure over the receipt is fiscal deficit. So from where the funds will come? By enhanced borrowings. So this is what is fiscal total expenditure minus revenue and capital receipt other than borrowings gives you the fiscal deficit. It is estimated to be 4.8% GDP of 24-25 financial year and 4.4% of GDP for 25-26 of the financial year. Yes.
Principal component in bonds would be considered in capital or interest expenditure.
The principal component means the principal.
Recently, RBI is buying back 60,000 crores worth of SGBs from banks. So that would come into capital.
But that's an RBI transaction, no?
Because Government of India will redeem them from RBI. So RBI is further buying them from SBI to increase liquidity in the market.
Correct.
So they would come into capital expenditure or interest one.
So the interest component, only the interest component will always go into the interest cost. So the main principal repayment will again will not form part of expenditure. It's a repayment of a loan then.
So it is not 1,000 crores.
It's only 60,000 crores. In front of lakhs of balance sheet, it's only 60,000 crores.
So this year, India's union budget is first time exceeded 50 lakh crore rupees.
Come to the next slide. Oh, this is just a pie chart taken from the budget slides that from where rupee comes, and then under the next slide from where rupee goes. If you just have a look from where rupee comes, 22% plus 17%. 22% is income taxes, which is personal income tax, individual income tax that individuals pay, and 17% is the corporate tax. So this gives us close to 39% comes in the form of direct taxes. Then in form of indirect taxes, there is excise duty, there is GST, there is customs. So 18 plus 5 plus 4, close to 27%. 27% comes in the form of indirect taxes. In the form of borrowings and other liabilities, which is a major chunk, which is 24%. And then other non-tax receipts and non-debt capital receipts are the remaining amount of percentage. So government के पास पैसा वैसा आता है क्योंकि people pay taxes. वही उनकी source of receipt है plus borrowings of course, but वो उनका पैसा नहीं है, वो तो वापस repay करना है one fine day. So income tax and direct tax and indirect tax is the receipt of government of India through which वो लोग अपना सारा खर्चा करते हैं. Come to the next slide. From where rupee goes. So rupee goes mainly, if you look, 22% is the state share of taxes and duties in the overall collection. Next is big item is 20%, which is interest payment on all the borrowings. 16% is the central sector schemes, which is excluding the capital outlay on defense and subsidy. And then subsidies, defense sector, centrally sponsored schemes, finance commission, etc. So all these schemes, pensions, and everything, the payout of from the government treasury goes into various all these schemes. Come to the next. These are okay. These are just the numbers. We can skip it. Come to the next slide. Right. Tax rates. So what all changes are there in the tax rates? Slabs or
rebate from section 87A.
That's rebate under 87A. So slab has whether slab has changed or it has not changed in the old regime. Yes or no? No. What is the basic slab in the old regime? 2.5, 2.5 to 5, 5 to 10, and above 10. Right. So that has not changed. That has not changed. Old regime की slabs change नहीं हुई है. New regime के अंदर जो section है 115 BAC का section, उसके अंदर the rates have changed. What are the new rates? 0 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 12, 12 to 16, 16 to 20, 20 to 24, and above 24. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, or above than 24, 30. Surcharge के rates में change? नहीं. Surcharge कोई change नहीं. And old rate में क्या surcharge in the old regime? What is the rate of surcharge? Highest rate of surcharge in the old regime. Then what is 25%? New regime. So new regime में अलग rate है, old regime में अलग rate है. Correct. And the rates हो गया plus 87A. So what relief or what enhancement has been done in section 87A?
25 to 60.
The deduction under section 87A has been increased to rupees 60,000 rupees, and income which was earlier up to 7 lakh rupees has been increased to 12 lakh rupees. Correct. What important announcement was made by the finance minister during the speech on 87A? Excluding incomes which are taxable under special rates. What are those special rates income? 111A, 112, 112A, and all those sections. 111 of the short-term capital gains on transfer of equity-oriented mutual funds or equity shares. 112 होता है 12.5% capital gains on transfer of a long-term capital asset. 112 होता है long-term capital gains on transfer of shares, equity-listed shares, and all those things. अगर ये special rates पे tax होते हैं, those will be excluded for the purpose of computing 87A relief. किसी की income है 12 lakh rupees, which is 8 lakh salary and 4 lakh rupees is long-term capital gain from shares. Tax लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा? क्योंकि 4 lakh के ऊपर उसको 87A का benefit नहीं मिलेगा. ये controversy क्यों आई और why finance minister has to emphasize during the budget speech? Right. जब last time ITR फाइल कर रहे थे till 4th or 3rd of July 24 जो income tax की utility थी that was giving the benefit of 87A on these special rates income, then the utility got revised, ये benefit deny हो गया. This matter went to the Mumbai High Court. Mumbai High Court said that 87A का relief मिलना चाहिए and directed the income tax department to increase the last filing deadline, which was 31st of December, ये extend हो गई थी. I think till 15th of January extend हो गई थी to file belated or revised return. And Bombay High Court even directed to come up with the new utility. अब ये पूरी controversy तो court के सामने हो गई. Then again, finance minister emphasized saying that special 87A relief is not available for special rates income. In the budget speech, if you have heard, she emphasizes twice. She said it twice. And even in the memorandum to the budget document, it is written that this benefit under 87A will be excluding those income which are chargeable to tax in special rates. Now, again, what I feel is that even though finance minister has emphasized, but कोई specific amendment नहीं आया है इसको कहते हुए. And this will again come up in litigation in the times to come. Then the courts will decide whether 87A relief will be available or not onto the special rates income or not. So that is one. So overall relief because of in the new regime, because of increase in the slabs, कितना benefit मिला है? Anyone heard of number कि ये tax का benefit मिल गया है to a middle class person because of increase in the tax rationalization of the tax rates?
30 lakh income पे 70 lakh 18.
एक नंबर total maximum relief कितना है?
1 lakh.
1,10,000 is the maximum relief that an individual is getting because of increase in the slabs or rationalization of the slabs. And we even did some examples, and in most of the cases, the new regime is favorable. Okay, new regime के अंदर salary का जो standard deduction होता है, कितने का होता है? मिलेगा? और क्या मिलेगा? Correct. और
82.
correct. Employer's contribution. Employee या self contribution to 50,000 का वो नहीं मिलेगा. Only employer's contribution, which is 12% or 14% of the figure, उतने का ही deduction मिलेगा. Right. ये 3-4 items ही है which you will get. So old regime किसके लिए beneficial हुआ फिर? वो expenses कर रहे हैं. Expenses का कोई deduction ही नहीं मिलता salary में.
नहीं related to 80C.
Investment जो कर रहे हैं तो वो तो 1,50,000 के लिमिट है और छोटी सी लिमिट है वो तो नॉन सैलरी इसमें होगी. नॉन सैलरी में क्या मिलेगा? So old regime will only be beneficial for those people who are claiming big HRA deductions. 1,50,000 का पूरा चैप्टर 6 से में 1,50,000 प्लस 80D ले लो अप टू 50,000 प्लस NPS ले लो 50,000 रुपीज एडिशनल वो प्लस अगर कोई डोनेशंस है ये सारी चीजें है तो उनके लिए ही बेनिफिट रहेगा. सो ब्रेक इवन तो मैंने कैलकुलेट नहीं किया बट अगर किसी की 6 से 7 5 मतलब मे बी 5 to 8 लाख रुपीस के डिडक्शंस है इन फॉर्म ऑफ HRA और चैप्टर 6 से सब कुछ मिला के तभी जाके किसी केस के लिए ओल्ड regime बेनिफिशियल होगा. अदरवाइज इन मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस न्यू regime would be beneficial. Right? There was even one poster that was doing rounds on LinkedIn that out of there are total 6 crore income tax return or maybe income tax return filers, and out of which pursuant to the change which have been made, 97% of the population of India will not be paying taxes in India, effectively making India a tax-free country for individuals. Why? Because जो 12 लाख रुपीस तक की जो statistics float हुए हैं उसके अंदर 12 लाख से ऊपर वाले जो इनकम है 12 to 25 lakhs to 50 and जो statistics है the number of taxpayers are very small, very small. Only 3% or less than 3% of the overall population of India that would be paying taxes in the form of individuals, direct taxes. In GST to sabhi pay karte hain sab log, right? So that was one important statistic saying that now it can be claimed that India is effectively a tax-free country for a middle class group people. So that is what change has come. So this is all we have discussed. These are the new slabs. 12 lakh rupees, there is no tax payable. Memorandum clarifies that the relief under 87A is not available to the incomes which are chargeable at special rates. Okay, come down. Other than that, there have been no change in surcharge rates, no change in any corporate tax rates, no change in rates for LLP or partnership, AOI, BOI, etc. We can come down. So these are all the rates. I've just written that there is no change. These are all the basic slab rates which were there earlier, continues to be the same. Come down. Right, come. This is all same. There have been no change in the tax rates. So I'm just skipping it. So we can just revise what are the tax rates for domestic companies and foreign companies. Which section? 115B, A, A.
तो ये before we discuss the other rates, ये जो इन्होंने फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने अपने स्पीच में कहा था कि ये जो हमने रैशनलाइजेशन किया ऑफ द टैक्स रेट्स, so we have foregone 1 lakh crore rupees of the taxes, और जो टोटल एस्टिमेट है इनका वो पिछले साल से 47 करोड़ से 50 लाख करोड़ हो गया, 47 लाख करोड़ से. तो ये क्या हुआ, मतलब एक तरफ तो कह रहे हैं कि साहब 1 लाख करोड़ टैक्स हमने फोरगो किया है. इसका क्या जवाब है, मतलब इसका इम्प्लीकेशन क्या है, क्या सरकार सोच रही है या क्या होगा? नए टैक्स पे रहेंगे. तो ये सरकार अभी क्या है कि इसके पीछे जो बड़ा सबसे बड़ा इनको जो कॉन्फिडेंस है ना, जिस तरीके से जब संसद शुरू हुई तो उससे पहले भी प्रधानमंत्री जी का एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस हुआ था और वहां पे भी उन्होंने कहा कि साहब मिडिल क्लास के बारे में, मतलब ये एज अप्रिशिएटेड की काफी एफर्ट्स कर रहे हैं ये. एंड देन आपने देखा कि जब बजट की टैक्स रेट्स की अनाउंसमेंट शुरू हुई, जब टैक्सेस से रिलेटेड, तो फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने पहले कहा कि साहब हम जो टैक्स की रेट्स हैं इसको हम थोड़ा आखिरी में बाद में देखेंगे, है ना. और मतलब बेसिकली एज ए सरप्राइज she wanted to tell it at the last only. और जो इनका कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल था, जब इन्होंने 7 लाख से 12 लाख डायरेक्ट एक तरीके से एग्जाम्पशन कह लो, क्योंकि वो थ्रू 87A की रिबेट ही इन्होंने पूरा एग्जाम्पशन दिया है. तो why that confidence is there, आप ये थोड़ा समझिए. सरकार अपनी जो रिलायंस है वो डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस पे काम कर रही है. डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस पे वो सोच रही है कि यार, क्योंकि इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस से उनको ऑलरेडी जो उनकी एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं उससे ज्यादा उनको मिल रहा है ना. और ये 1 लाख करोड़ अगर मान लीजिए कि मार्केट में आएंगे तो कहीं ना कहीं वापस कंजम्पशन भी बढ़ेगा, लोग ट्रेवल करेंगे, एक्सपेंडिचर्स करेंगे, तो अगेन इट विल go back to the government kitty only as a goods and service tax, indirect tax.
लेकिन वो रेवेन्यू का चार्ट जो था उसमें तो 39% उससे आया.
किससे? नहीं वो आ रहा है ना, वो तो अभी आ रहा है, खत्म नहीं हो रहा है डायरेक्ट टैक्स, अभी वापस आएगा 2-4 दिन बाद में, अगले वीक में एक छोटा सा डायरेक्ट टैक्स, इनकम टैक्स एक्ट वापस आएगा. डायरेक्ट टैक्स वो नहीं है, क्योंकि आज की डेट में डायरेक्ट टैक्स एक ही है, इट इज इनकम टैक्स ओनली. तो इट इज इनकम टैक्स बिल विच इज कमिंग. तो खत्म होने का मतलब ये नहीं है, उनका डायरेक्ट टैक्स में भी कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स के ऊपर ज्यादा वो है. इंडिविजुअल पे जैसा कि योगेश बता रहे हैं कि भाई करीब 97% लोग जो है वो इससे बाहर हो जाएंगे. मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल विल नॉट बी पेइंग द टैक्सेस. सो क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट का मैकेनिज्म विद रेफरेंस टू इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स इतना स्ट्रांग हो चुका है वो आप जैसे मान लीजिए कि वो पानी पूरी वाला है और वो पेटीएम से पैसे ले रहा है, तो सरकार को पता चल रहा है कि सब ये इसने पेटीएम से 40 लाख से ऊपर का टर्नओवर कर लिया है एंड दे आर आस्किंग फॉर जीएसटी टू बी पेड ऑन पानी पूरी, है ना। तो अब अगली बार जब आप पानी पूरी खाने जाओगे तो आपको साथ में जीएसटी का बिल भी मिलेगा, है ना। तो 20 रुपए की जगह वो 24 रुपए की हो जाएगी।
सर अभी पॉपकॉर्न पे आया था नया लेटेस्ट जीएसटी पॉपकॉर्न, शुगर मिलेगा तो ये जीएसटी लगेगा, नॉन शुगर होगा तो ये लगेगा। Okay, tax rates on companies, right? So 115 BAA, which is rationalized tax rate, that provides a tax rate of 22% plus a charge of 10% and cess of 4%, effectively gives 25.168% if a company is opting for 115 BAA. If a company is not opting for 115 BAA, then the tax rate is either 25% if the turnover does not exceed 400 crore in previous year 23-24, and in any other cases it is 30%. Right. For the new manufacturing companies for which sections 115 BAB was applicable, the tax rate is still 15% plus 10% surcharge and cess. There was one demand from the industry that the sunset clause in section 115 BAB, which was 15% rate on manufacturing company, that has already been ended. So this was also proposed or demand that it should also be extended to boost manufacturing in India so that new manufacturing companies get set up in India. But this demand was not met by the finance minister, and the rate of the sunset has been there. So now the benefit of 115 BAB is not available to any new company. Right? The rate is 15% for those who were established during that period of time. Okay. The foreign company tax rate is 35%, and there is a surcharge of 2% and 5% on foreign companies. There is a limit. 2% surcharge if the total income exceeds 1 crore but does not exceed 10 crores. And if the total income exceeds 10 crore rupees, then the surcharge is 5%. This is for foreign company. And there is a cess. This rate of 35% was reduced in the last budget only. Earlier it was 40%. 40% was reduced to 35% in the last budget. Come to the next slide. So individual taxes. So what are the changes which has come into the individual taxes? First is in section 17. Now section 17 subsection 2, it provided how perquisite taxation, how the tax will be paid on perquisite. Now there was a limit. So if you read, existing provision was that under section 17(2) it provides that perquisite includes the value of benefit or amenity granted or provided free of cost or at a concessional rate by an employer to an employee whose income under the head salaries as a monetary benefit does not exceed 50,000 rupees. Right. Now, proviso said that further there was a proviso to 17(2) for in relation to an expenditure for medical treatment. There was a limit of rupees 2 lakh rupees. Now, both these limit of 50,000 and 2 lakh rupees have been removed, and simple words have been inserted, substituted by the words such amount as may be prescribed. So the powers have been given to the CBDT to prescribe the limits for taxing any amount perquisite under section 17(2) or the proviso to section 17(2). So what was proviso saying? Proviso to section 17(2) provides that expenditure incurred by the employer for travel outside India on the medical treatment of the employee or any member of the employee's family shall not be included in the perquisite subject to the condition that the gross total income of such employee does not exceed 2 lakh rupees. So ये जो benefit होता था generally बहुत ज़्यादा लगता नहीं था, बहुत applicable होता नहीं था because the limits were very low, 50,000 and ऊपर जो 17(2) वो ये कहता है कि perquisite नहीं माना जाएगा अगर किसी salary जो दिया जा रहा है that is up to 50,000 rupees only by the employer to the employer. अगर salary 50,000 है so then any benefit which is provided will not be treated as perquisite. But the limits were too small, 50,000 or 2 lakh rupees. I don't think so कि कोई इसमें fall भी करता होगा. These limits have only been removed in section 17(2) and have been inserted, substituted by the words such amount as may be prescribed. So the CBDT will now come up with an enhanced limit so that the benefit can be extended of these sections. This is proposal. Come to the second slide. This is also not really very, a day-to-day applicable section. NPS Vatsalya scheme. So earlier, we already have 80 which is the NPS account, NPS benefit section. It already provides a 50,000 reduction to a person, right? This benefit has also been extended to the contributions which are made in NPS Vatsalya account, right? So the proposed amendment number one is that the deduction is to be allowed to the parent or a guardian total income of the amount which is paid or deposited in the account of a minor under the NPS Vatsalya scheme up to a maximum of 50,000 rupees. Number one. Number two, the amount of deduction, the amount on which deduction has been allowed under the subsection 1B of 80 or any amount accrued thereon will be charged to tax when the amount is withdrawn in case the deposit was made in the account of a minor and the amount on which deduction has been allowed is received on the closure of the account due to the death of the minor, then it shall not be deemed to be a income of the parent or a guardian. Now, just from down a little, partial withdrawal. So under the partial withdrawal, the exemption is allowed only to the extent of 25% of the contribution which has been made by him. In normal NPS, I think the partial withdrawal, if a partial withdrawal is made, then there is an exemption up to 60% of amount which is withdrawn from the NPS is not chargeable to tax. Remaining 40% is chargeable to tax under the normal national pension schemes. In case of NPS Vatsalya, they have introduced the limit that up to 25% of the amount that is withdrawn from the NPS Vatsalya account will not be charged to tax. Remaining would be chargeable to tax in case of a partial withdrawal for the parent or the guardian. Exemption from withdrawals of national saving scheme from taxation. Now, this section, so the amendment which has been proposed is that national savings scheme is not an exempt category. It is taxable. The last is exempt. So exempt EEE means when you make a contribution, then there is a tax reduction. The interest which is earned is exempt, and when you make a withdrawal, that is also exempt. That is called EEE categories. So, for example, LIC investments. LIC investments are fall under exempt category because the amount that you contribute gets reduction under ATC. The amount that you withdraw is not chargeable to tax, right? Similarly, other than NPS, this PPF is one of the main examples for this exempt, or PPF employers provident fund contribution. These all fall under the NPF EEE category. Now, this national savings scheme. So even if you do, RD or a 5-year tax saving FDs. So when you make a contribution, you get a deduction, but the interest is chargeable to tax and also the redemption. So redemption cannot be charged to tax because interest has already been charged to tax. So this did not fall under the exempt category. Now the proposed amendment that withdrawals which are made by the individuals from the national savings scheme for which deduction was allowed and if the withdrawal has been made on or after 29th of August 2024 would not be subject to tax. So they are given that exemption. Further, this exemption is provided only to deposits along with the interest accrued thereon made before 1/4/1992. So it's very handful of people who will be getting benefits of this amendment of this proposal. Now, this is a change in the house property section. Now, under the house property section, we all know that up to how many houses there is a benefit which is available on which no tax has to be paid. 2 houses which are self-occupied or cannot be occupied due to the reason that because of the employment or the business or profession was carried out by such person at any other place. Then that benefit was earlier available up to the 2 houses, but there was a condition. Number one, what the existing provision says that he was not able to occupy that place because of the purpose of the residence or owner cannot actually occupy due to his employment, business or profession carried out at any other place. Then you have to take the annual value of the property as nil. Now this has just been rationalized and it has been provided that due to any reason, if a person is not able to use that 2 houses, then the value of the 2 houses, the annual value will be treated as nil. Earlier, so this has been rationalized कि आपके पास 2 घर है, तो 2 घर की आप annual value nil ले सकते हो. अगर 2 से ज्यादा घर है, तो deemed rent का deemed notional का concept चलता है, उसके ऊपर tax आपको देना पड़ेगा. So if I have 4 houses, then out of any 4 houses, I can say for these 2 houses, I want to claim the annual value. Then for the remaining 2 houses, even if they are not given on rent, they are being not being rented out, then also आप annual value को एक notional value determine करोगे, उसके ऊपर आप जो भी municipal taxes pay किया है during the year उसका deduction होंगे, फिर उसका standard 30% deduction मिलेगा, और अगर कोई interest EMI चल रही है उसके ऊपर interest payment जा रहा है तो उसका deduction होगा up to the limit of 2 lakhs. So this is nutshell house property and the small amendment which has come. Come to the next slide. So now we come to the PGBP and the capital gains amendment. Come to the startup. We have already seen that the benefit has been extended to those startups which are incorporated up to before 1st of April 2030. So this was going to expire, this section benefit was going to expire of up to 1st April 25. So all those startups which were incorporated till 31st of March 25 were eligible to get a benefit of section 80I AC, which provides that out of 10 assessment years, the startup can claim can have an option to not pay tax for 3 assessment years. So no tax on the income of a startup, and there were other conditions also that it has to be recognized by a DPIIT and all other conditions. So this was getting closed on 31st of March 25, but this date has been extended up to 31st of March 2030. So now all the startups which are incorporated during the period up to 31st of March 2030 can claim benefit of Section 80 IAC subject to the conditions, subject to the other conditions that they fulfill in that section. Okay, obligation to furnish information on transaction of a crypto asset. So there's a new section 285BAA which has been introduced. So 285B is already a specified financial SFT transactions के ऊपर है. Now a new section is proposed to be inserted which is 285BAA. And with this amendment, they want to pass an obligation onto some prescribed reporting entity to furnish the information in relation to transaction of crypto asset in a statement within such time and form and manner as may be prescribed by the income tax authority. So whomsoever are dealing in crypto assets, now there will be a specified or a prescribed reporting entity. All these rules and framework will come out, and in that all these entities will have to furnish information to the government of India that all these payers, all these people have dealt into crypto asset. And crypto asset has जो virtual digital asset की जो definition थी section 247A में, उसमें सब clause D insert करके crypto asset को define किया गया. Any crypto asset being a digital representation of a value that relies on cryptographically secured distributed ledger or a similar technology to validate and secure the transactions. This has been crypto asset term has now been defined under the Income Tax Act now. So information will flow on. The objective is of course to catch hold of those people who are transacting in cryptocurrencies. This is one important amendment in case of amalgamations. Because what we have always known and heard is that the business losses can be carried forward up to a period of 8 years. And in case of amalgamation, the amalgamated company can carry it forward for the next fresh life of 8 years, right? So अगर कोई existing company है, वो जो पुरानी company है, amalgamated company है जिसमें losses है, वो अगर merge हो गई amalgamated company में, तो losses amalgamated company को मिल जाता है. And earlier those losses, the amalgamated company was eligible to carry it forward up to a period of fresh 8 years from the date of amalgamations. This was the earlier law. Now this has been proposed, an amendment has been proposed to say that the losses can be carried forward only up to a period of 8 years, and 8 years has to be counted from the year in which loss was incurred by the predecessor amalgamating company. Right. So any loss, proposed amendment, any loss forming part of the accumulated losses of the predecessor entity, which is deemed to be the loss of the successor entity, shall be eligible to be carried forward for not more than 8 years immediately succeeding the assessment year for which such loss was first computed for the original predecessor entity. तो जो 8 years का time limit है, evergreening of the losses का जो concept हो रहा था, वो खत्म करना चाहते हैं. They are just saying कि 8 years तक के ही losses आप carry forward कर सको. It's not that आप amalgamate करो fresh life of 8 years, you can claim it. So this is one amendment. The last line, that this amendment shall apply to any amalgamation or a business reorganization which is effected on or after 1st April 2025. So this means that जो भी अगर NCLT के orders आते हैं, for amalgamation. And if those orders are coming on or after 1st of April 2025, उनके ऊपर this new provision will be applicable. So there is still a window of 1 month, 25 days. If any of the NCLT orders come during this period, and if they are effective before of 31st of March 25, then they can still fall under the old provision and claim a carry forward of the losses for a fresh 8 years from the effective date of amalgamation. Right. Come to the next one. This is one important amendment which has come, which is extending the time limit to file the updated return. Now, okay, so updated return right now can be filed only during a period of 12 months from the end of relevant assessment year or 24 months from the end of the relevant assessment year. So if you file updated return up to from 12 months from the end of the relevant AY, then you have to pay additionally 25% of tax and interest. 12 months के बाद करते हो up to 24 months, तो 50% of the आपको tax pay करना है. So for assessment year 22-23, right, the 24 months will end on 31st March 25. So the last date to file updated return for AY 22-23 is falling on 31st March 25. Now, the finance minister during the budget speech said that this updated return का जब से concept आया, more than 90,000 updated returns have been filed. People want to pay taxes and get rid over of any mistakes or any wrong claim or deductions that they have claimed, and therefore we are increasing the time limit of filing the updated return from 24 months to 48 months. So, 24 months to 36 months की limit लाए कि 36 months from the end of the relevant AY तक भी फाइल कर सकते हैं, 36 months to 48 months की भी एक लिमिट लेते हैं. Additional taxes जो पे करने होंगे, if you fall under this just come a little now. The C part, that updated return is filed after 24 months, but up to 36 months, you have to pay 60% of the aggregate of tax and interest, and 36 months to 48 months from the end of relevant AY file करते हो to 70% of the aggregate tax or interest. This amendment is applicable from 1st of April 25. So, for example, 1st of April 25 से पुराने वाले years. It's an important question that क्या AY 22-23 जिसकी deadline खत्म हो रही है 31st March 25 को, can those people also file an updated return by paying 60% and 70%? What do you think? I think they can still file because the amended provisions will be applicable from 1st of April 25, and as on 1st of April 25, you get a fresh life of additional up to 36 months and 48 months. So you pay 60% and 70%, and you do good whatever mistake that you have been made in the tax return that you made. Okay, this is last just that updated return cannot be filed where a show cause notice under section 148A of the Act has been issued in after 36 months from the end of the relevant year. So 148A show cause notice का जो concept है, before doing the reassessment, 148A का notice देना जरूरी है. If that notice has been issued after a period of 36 months, then you cannot file an updated return. Plus, this updated return cannot be filed in case of search cases. Agar search हो गए तो you don't have an option to file an updated. There are a lot of conditions which are mentioned into the section 139A and 140AA, I think. उसमें भी tax rates or conditions लिखी हुई है कि ये assessees है जो भी updated return file कर सकते हो, ये conditions उनके ऊपर fulfill हुई है. So all those have to be. Okay. Now, time limit have to impose penalties have been rationalized. So, Section 275 of present Act provides time limits. There are different time limits. Different time limits because it says 6 months. 6 months from the end of the month in which the order imposing the penalty was passed or order was received whichever is later. ऐसे करके अभी section 275 के अंदर एक time limit है और बहुत अलग-अलग time limit है, उसके ऊपर बहुत मतलब litigation है, deadlines. It's not very easy to track कि penalty की deadline कब खत्म हो रही है. In order to rationalize the penalty provisions, they have just said that penalty order has to be passed within a period of 6 months from the end of the quarter in which the assessment order was passed. If the assessment order was not in appeal. So, for example, if the assessment order is passed in January, although it's applicable from 1st of April 25, but assuming if it was passed in April 25, the quarter would end on March 25, and the penalty order has to be passed only up to 30th of September 25. And if a matter has been appealed, if an assessment order or any other order has been appealed before any appellate forum, then it has to be passed within a period of 6 months from the end of the quarter in which the order of the appellate authority is received by the principal chief commissioner of the income tax. So then it says, so an order of revision under section 262 or 264 is passed if the assessment or other order is subject to matter of revision. So everywhere the time limit is 6 months from the end of the quarter in all these circumstances. Assessment order कब पास हुआ? अगर 263, 264 का revision हो रहा है तब क्या होगा? अगर CIT appeal का order receive हुआ है from the by the jurisdictional principal or the CIT, then 6 months from the end of the quarter जब वो order receive किया गया था by the jurisdictional PCIT or the CIT, ये time limit तो हर जगह the thumb rule is that 6 months from the end of the quarter, the penalty order has to be passed in all these cases.
ये मोटा मोटी मतलब क्वार्टरली बेसिस पे कर दिया इसको.
6 months from the end of the quarter there.
हाँ तो इसका मतलब जनरली दिस विल the period will end on quarter only.
But sir,
On like end of the quarter, March.
हाँ, correct. वो deadlines वही निकल के आएगी. 6 months from the end of the orders कभी pass हुई. Amendment and definition of capital asset. Okay, so section 214 के अंदर एक amendment आया है that any security held by investment fund which is referred to in section 115 UB, which has invested in such security in accordance with the regulations made by the SEBI would be treated as capital asset only so that any income which is arising from transfer of such security would be in the nature of capital gains. So ये small जो amendment आया in case of unit linked insurance policies or capital asset, ये इतना अपने day out के ऊपर applicable नहीं होते. So I'm just skipping this out. TDS and TCS amendments. So like all of you said that the limits for applying TDS and TDS have been enhanced. So what are the revised limits? We'll just check now. Right. Section 193, which is interest on securities. The current threshold was that no TDS if interest is payable to a resident individual and insurer on debenture issued by a public company if the amount does not exceed 5,000 rupees. This has been increased. The limit of rupees 10,000 has been introduced for all the SSCs because पहले ये केवल individual, resident, individual और HUF के ऊपर था 5,000 रुपए की लिमिट थी. But अब एक blanket limit they have introduced कि अगर 10,000 rupees तक का इंटरेस्ट दिया जा रहा है तो कोई TDS नहीं करना है. ठीक है. All these are effective from 1st of April 25. Dividend के ऊपर जो limit है when the dividend is being paid is rupees 5,000. This limit has been increased to 10,000 rupees. अगर कोई नॉन रेजिडेंट को कोई डिविडेंड का पे आउट हो रहा है तो क्या उसके ऊपर टीडीएस होएगा? अगर 2,000 रुपए का भी पेमेंट हो रहा है तो होगा. If a company is paying dividend of 2,000 to an individual who is a non-resident, क्या उसके ऊपर TDS करना है क्या? करना है. नहीं करना तो क्यों नहीं करना और करना है तो क्यों करना है? करना चाहिए. मन से थोड़ी ना चलता. लॉ जो बोलेगा वही तो करेंगे यार. The answer is in front of you. This benefit of section 194 is only applicable to an individual shareholder who is a resident. Okay. And for non-resident, the section which applies is 195. Okay. So उनके ऊपर TDS की liability आएगी, उसमें कोई लिमिट नहीं है सेक्शन 195 में. लेकिन अगर if a resident shareholder is getting a dividend income up to rupees 10,000, then the company will not have to do TDS starting from 1st April 25. But अगर वही non-resident का केस है तो TDS की liability आएगी under section 195. 194A interest other than interest on securities, जो यहाँ पे TDS की limits थी. Rupees 50,000 for senior citizens and rupees 40,000 in case of others when the payer is a bank cooperative society and rupees 5,000 in any other cases. That limit has been increased to 1 lakh for senior citizens. कि 1 lakh rupees तक की income है तो उनके ऊपर कोई TDS नहीं होगा. And similarly वो 80 A जो section है उसके अंदर the limit has been increased. And 50,000 40,000 की limit को increase कर दिया 50,000 और जो basic threshold जो monthly 5,000, that limit has been increased to 10,000 rupees. 194K 5,000 से 10,000 हो गया, we don't deal with this section daily. 194B and BB, winnings from lottery, crossword puzzle and winnings from horse race. So पहले जो limit है, that is aggregate of the amounts exceeding rupees 10,000 during the financial year. अगर 10,000 रुपए की winnings during the financial year exceed हो रही थी, तब जाके TDS लग रहा है. But this has been changed to become 10,000 in respect of a single transaction. So all these, so gaming companies के ऊपर भी वो नया सेक्शन है, उसमें भी सेम लिमिट्स कर दिया, ₹10,000 in case of single transaction. अगर कोई भी winnings हो रही है, which is 10,000 for a single transaction, तो जाके TDS की liability आएगी.
It is relaxed comparatively.
हाँ, it is. So but it's like limit increase हो गई, but वो 10,000 था for the entire financial year अगर आप करो. अब ये हर एक transaction के ऊपर है.
तो अगर आपने 5,000 का ट्रांजेक्शन किया है तो नहीं है, 10,000 के ऊपर है तो है.
हाँ, 10,000 से ऊपर अगर किसी में भी विनिंग्स हो रही है कोई भी सिंगल में ट्रांजैक्शन पे, तो उसके ऊपर टीडीएस की लाइबिलिटी आएगी.
लेकिन अगर एक क्रॉस हो गया 10,000 के ऊपर तो टीडीएस है. फिर जो सेकंड आपने मान लो
अगर 5,000 से नीचे एग्रीगेट कोड यूज कर रहे हैं, ये बोल रहे हैं 10,000 इज स्कोप ऑफ सिंगल ट्रांजैक्शन
फॉर एवरी ट्रांजैक्शन वी विल कार्ड में.
194D इंश्योरेंस कमीशन की लिमिट इंक्रीज हुई है 15,000 से 20,000. 194G इनकम बाय वे ऑफ कमीशन प्राइस ऑन लॉटरी टिकट्स, ये भी ठीक है. कम टू द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड.
क्या वो पूछना है किसी को?
इसमें अगर मतलब गुड्स नहीं है, कुछ और है,
क्या नहीं है,
सामान वगैरह गुड्स नहीं है मतलब.
पैसा नहीं है.
तो काइंड वाला सेक्शन में कोई चेंज नहीं है. काइंड वाले सेक्शन के अंदर तो फिर आपको यही देखना पड़ेगा कि काइंड डिलीवर करने से पहले वो इंश्योर करो कि वो टैक्सेस पे कर रहे हैं. विनिंग्स काइंड में दी जाती है. टीडीए विनिंग तो है, लेकिन या तो आप मॉनेटरी कंसिडरेशन में दोगे या काइंड में दोगे. तो वो वाले सेक्शन में कोई चेंज नहीं. That is same as it is. Even if it is in kind, then the payer has to ensure that the due taxes on that winning has been paid. या फिर वो पहले जमा करवाएगा, मतलब जो भी विनर है वो पहले जमा, या दो तरीके होते हैं जब भी काइंड में होते हैं. या तो एक बारी ऑफ एडवांस टैक्स वो जमा करा दे और उसका चालान ला के देखो इस विनिंग्स के ऊपर मैंने पैसा पे कर दिया एंड देयरफॉर रिलीज मी द विनिंग्स. या दूसरा तरीका है कि he can give that money to the payer of the winning, या फिर वो जमा कराएगा एंड देन ही रिलीज करेगा उसको. Come to the next slide. Brokerage and commission की limit 15,000 से 20,000 हो गई है. The rent which was 2,40,000 during the financial year has been changed to ₹50,000 per month. तो अगर किसी एक महीने में 60,000 रुपीस का रेंट दिया तो टीडीएस करना है, और ड्यू टू चेंज इन रेंट टर्म्स अगर नेक्स्ट मंथ से वो 40,000 हो गया तो टीडीएस नहीं करना. फी फॉर प्रोफेशनल सर्विसेज 194J के अंदर जो 30,000 की लिमिट है दैट हैज इंक्रीज टू 50,000 रुपीस. Income in respect of units, ठीक है, और income by way of finance compensation, we don't do it day in day out. 194 LBC जो section है, उसके अंदर पहले TDS rate थी 25% for individual and individual and 30% in case of others, where the income is payable by a securitization trust or resident investor in respect of investment in securitization trust. ये rate को reduce कर दिया to 10% for all the assets. Right. Next. TCS related amendments. Number first is that जो टिम्बर होता है, मतलब सबसे पहले तो इन्होंने जो 206C सबसेक्शन 1 है उस सबसेक्शन के अंदर TCS की रेट्स की हुई इन केस ऑफ टिम्बर एंड फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस एंड ऑल दीज थिंग्स. तो जो रेट पहले होती थी 2.5% उसको कम करके सबसे पहले तो 2% कर दिया. और एक लिटिगेशन होता था कि फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस क्या होता है, उसके ऊपर काफी लिटिगेशन था. सो उन्होंने एक फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस की डेफिनेशन डाल दी है अंडर द TCS प्रोविजंस. व्हाइल वी डोंट डू और अप्लाई दीस सेक्शंस ऑन अ डेली बेसिस, बट जहां अप्लाई होता है, जहां पे फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस निकलते आए काफी, उनके लिए उन्होंने बोला दैट फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस हैज बीन डिफाइंड टू मी. Forest produce shall have the same meaning as defined in State Act for the time being in force or the Indian Forest Act of 1927. So मैंने भी नहीं पढ़ा. Come to the next. 206C1, हाँ 206C1G. थोड़ा सा बताना. The TCS की जो limits थी, that has been increased, threshold has been increased to 7 lakh, from 7 lakhs to 10 lakh rupees. And there is no TCS if remittance is made out of loan which is obtained from financial institution for education purpose. पहले जो TCS लेना था, that was 0.5% of the loan that you have taken from a financial institution for the purpose of education. वो हटा दिया, कोई TCS नहीं है उस केस के ऊपर. But and the threshold has been increased from 7 lakh rupees to 10 lakh rupees. And 206C1H TCS on sale of goods जो 3 या 4 साल पहले लेके आए थे, that has been completely scrapped off. अब कोई TCS on sale of goods नहीं करना है because you already have TDS on 194Q के अंदर.
लेकिन ये 1/4/25 से है. आप अभी वाली ऑडिट में तो अभी भी TCS अभी जो करोगे ना उसमें आप भी मत मान लेना.
Plus, this new thing 206A and CCA, which was TDS and TCS in case of non-filers of return. मतलब यू एंड ट्राई हुआ था इस सेक्शन के ऊपर और बहुत कम्बरसम भी था दैट आपको पैन नंबर चेक करने हैं कि वो स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन है या नहीं है. स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन क्या होता था, वो होता था जिसने पिछले साल में अपनी इनकम टैक्स की रिटर्न फाइल नहीं करी है एंड उसका टीडीएस आई थिंक 50,000 रुपीज से ज्यादा है, तो he used to be called as a specified person. So non-filer of income tax return के ऊपर ये लोग higher rate लेके आ गए थे. So it was a lot of cumbersome thing कि यार पहले आप ओरिजिनल सेक्शन चेक करो, फिर इसका पैन नंबर चेक करो कि स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन है या नहीं है, और वो सब इनकम टैक्स की यूटिलिटी पोर्टल सब था टू चेक ऑल दीस थिंग्स. Now in order to rationalize all these things, they have said कि we are removing this section. So 206 AB TDS and 206 CCA, which is TCS. In case of non-filer of tax returns, a section which is still applicable till 31st March 25, it has been proposed to be removed from 1st April 2019. International taxation. So if you look at the international taxation amendments, block transfer pricing assessment for 3 consecutive years. Now this is a very welcome change which the industry is really appreciating in case of transfer pricing assessments. Now this is applicable from the next financial year, and it simply says that if a transfer pricing assessment has been made and it is accepted, no appeal has been filed, then the assessee can apply to the assessing officer saying that please apply these transfer pricing assessment to the period of next 2 years and I'm okay with it. So there is a reduced litigation on the same issue that a transfer pricing assessment made for a period of 1 year, first year, can also be applied for second year and third year, because the substance of the transaction never used to go a lot of changes. जो आर्म्स लेंथ प्राइस का मार्जिन रखना है एक ट्रांजैक्शन के ऊपर, वो अगर ईयर 1 में तो मोर और लेस वो ईयर 2 में भी रहता है, ईयर 3 में भी रहता था. या फिर जो भी बेंचमार्किंग के आप मेथड्स अप्लाई करते हो इन ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग, those used to be the same. So in order to reduce the transfer pricing litigation, they have introduced the concept of block transfer pricing assessment. Conditions for the applicability: a taxpayer must exercise the option for following 2 consecutive previous years in addition to the year under consideration in such form and manner as prescribed. तो अगर year 1 के अंदर जो transfer pricing assessment हुआ that is acceptable, that will get applied for the next 2 consecutive years as well, once a taxpayer exercises the option. Number 2, the TPO will validate the option and pass an order by the end of the next month in which the option was exercised, subject to the conditions, and the proposed amendment is not applicable in case of such cases. Determination of ALP कैसे होगा? So once the option is validated कि हाँ जो ALP determine किया है that is acceptable, the ALP determined in relation to an international transaction or SD for any previous year will apply to the similar transactions for the immediate next 2 years. Now if you notice इन्होंने word use किया will apply to similar transactions. It's not same transactions, because it's very difficult कि एक transaction जो year 1 है वो same to same year 2 में रहे. So to give that a little bit flexibility, they have used the word similar and not same. No reference, no new reference for ALP computation will be made to the transfer pricing officer. और अगर कोई reference कर भी दिया गया है तो वो withdraw कर लिया जाएगा. And recomputation of income, the AO will recompute the total income based on the TPO's determination of the ALP within 3 months from the end of the month in which the assessment is completed or 143 month intimation is received. और DRP directions कुछ है तो वो भी incorporate करेगा. and कोई भी अगर difficulties arise होगी इस section को implement करने में, then the CBDT has retained the powers to issue the guidelines on this. So this is a welcome change in respect of international transfer of international taxation, the block assessment for transfer pricing cases. Up to the next slide. Our tonnage taxation scheme has been introduced, and which we really don't apply section 115 BB. इस amendment से पहले मेरे को भी नहीं पता था क्या है section 115 BB. I also read it. Okay, what this is, some tonnage taxation scheme which provides that a qualifying company may opt for tonnage taxation scheme by making an application to the JCIT. The JCIT gets a time of 1 month from the end of the month in which the application was received to pass an order approving or rejecting the tonnage taxation scheme. This time limit of 1 month has been increased to 3 months. So small change rationalization has been done. This clarification relating to a significant economic presence के लिए clarification आया है section 9 के अंदर, which says that any transaction or activities that are only confined to purchase of goods in India for the purpose of export will not constitute a significant economic presence. So significant economic presence का जो section है section 9, it has some limits कि SEP मान लिया जाएगा if the value of goods which are being purchased and sold exceeds a certain threshold. I think the threshold is either 2 crores or 3 crores. But इन्होंने clarification डाल दिया है that if the goods which are being purchased only for the purpose of export out of India will not constitute a significant economic presence in India. Next slide, no. Right. Now this 44 BBD एक new presumptive taxation regime लेके आया है. In the new presumptive taxation regime के अंदर this is applicable only for an eligible taxpayer being a non-resident who is engaged in the business of providing services or technology in India for the purpose of setting up an electronics manufacturing facility. तो इनके लिए एक presumptive taxation scheme लेके आया है, saying that 25% of the amount which is received by them will be deemed to be the income under the PGBP. उसके ऊपर आप वापस tax rate लगाओगे तो effective tax rate आपकी 10% से भी कम आएगी. Tax on income, because we have 44 AD नहीं 8D है हमारे पास and 44 AD है. AD is for services. AD is for business और AD is services के लिए करेक्ट. तो एक नया presumptive taxation का scheme लेके आया for non-resident only for those people who are engaged in providing services or technology in India for the purpose of setting up electronic facility or in connection with manufacturing or producing electronic goods to a resident company which is establishing or operating electronic manufacturing facility in India. So I think the objective is जो EV को जो इंडिया में बूस्ट करने के लिए लेके आए, if a non-resident has the technology and they are providing that services to an Indian manufacturer, then जो भी उसको पेमेंट आ रहा है उसका 25% तो PGBP में इनकम मानी जाएगी और उसके ऊपर 25% का अगर रेट लगाते हैं तो the tax rate even comes lesser than 10%. Effective tax rate on the income. So this is a new welcome change, and hopefully the non-resident should come up to render the services to India. So transfer of capital asset by a non-resident. Now इसके अंदर जो simple जो एक propose किया गया section propose किया गया amendment, the tax rate instead of 10% will be 12.5% for long term capital gains. जो पहले बजट में किया था, जो रह गया था वो इनके लिए बोल दिया कि इनके लिए भी अब 12.5% का ही tax rate लगेगा for transfer of asset for long term. This is just to bring parity with the other taxpayers. Trust related amendment. So one amendment that is come in trust related is relaxation of registration of trust and institutions. So now the proposed what has been amended is that a minor default. So even a minor default may lead to cancellation or registration of a trust or institution, and such trust or institution becomes liable to tax on aggregated income as per the provisions of Chapter 12EB of the Act. Accordingly, it is proposed to provide that where the application for registration of a trust or institution is not complete, it shall not be treated as a specified violation. क्योंकि एक section था specified violation का. Specified violation means the cases where the application referred to in clause AC of subsection 1 of section 12A is not complete or it contains any false or incorrect information. तो specified violation मान लिया जाता था जब भी अपन apply करते थे to approval. And this has been proposed कि ये छोटी सी अगर कोई mistake रह जाती है, it will not be regarded as specified violation. तो आपकी जो application है वो reject नहीं की जाएगी. करेक्ट. ये एक इम्पोर्टेंट अमेंडमेंट है. जो पीरियड ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन दिया जाता था या अप्रूवल दिया जाता था बाय द इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट टू एनी ट्रस्ट वो अप टू 5 इयर्स दिया जाता था. दिस लिमिट ऑफ 5 इयर्स हैज बीन इंक्रीज टू 10 इयर्स नाउ. So existing provision के अंदर section 12AB provides registration of a trust or institution for a period of 5 years and a provisional registration for a period of 3 years. After the expiry of such registration and provisional registration, the trust or institution was required to make an application again. Now it is proposed to increase the period of validity of the registration of the trust or the institution from 5 years to 10 years, only in cases where the total income of the trust does not exceed 5 crore rupees during each of the 2 previous years preceding the previous year in which the such application is made. एक क्वेश्चन जो अभी लाइव क्वेश्चन मेरे पास भी आया कि सिंस दिस अमेंडमेंट इज एप्लीकेबल फ्रॉम 1st of April 25, सो वो ट्रस्ट जिनका रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑलरेडी मिल चुका है 5 साल के लिए पहले, इस अमेंडमेंट से पहले अगर किसी का रजिस्ट्रेशन 5 साल के लिए मिल चुका है क्योंकि पहले लॉ था 5 साल का, क्या उनके ऊपर ऑटोमेटिकली 10 साल की टाइम लिमिट लग जाएगी? दैट इज फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन. सेकेंड कि अगर किसी का एक्सपायर होने वाला है अभी इन द मंथ ऑफ मार्च और अप्रैल, इन द मंथ ऑफ अप्रैल बिकॉज अप्रैल से नया लॉ लग जाएगा, तो क्या उनका अगर खत्म हो रहा है 5 साल अप्रैल में, तो क्या उनको वापस रीअप्लाई करने की जरूरत है या नहीं है? क्योंकि नए लॉ के हिसाब से तो 10 इयर्स हो गया, तो जो पुराना रजिस्ट्रेशन है जो 5 साल के लिए वैलिड था कि वो डीम्ड मान लिया जाएगा अप टू अ पीरियड ऑफ 10 इयर्स और नॉट. सो माय रीडिंग सजेस्ट दैट जो पहले के प्रोविजंस है वो सेम है. यू स्टिल हैव टू रीअप्लाई. अगर आपका खत्म हो रहा है अप्रैल के अंदर, यू स्टिल मेक एन एप्लीकेशन फॉर अप्रूवल ऑफ द ट्रस्ट. जो अथॉरिटी है अब वो आपको अप्रूवल देगी 10 साल के लिए. ऐसा नहीं है कि देयर इज अ डीमिंग की जो तुम्हारा पुराने रजिस्ट्रेशंस के या पुराने मिल चुके हैं जिनकी वैलिडिटी 5 साल तक है वो ऑटोमेटिकली 10 इयर्स एक्सटेंड हो जाएंगे. ऐसा नहीं है. इट सिंपली सेज दैट द पीरियड हैज बीन इंक्रीज्ड फ्रॉम 5 इयर्स टू 10 इयर्स if the total income of the trust does not exceed 5 crore rupees in any of the 2 previous years. तो आपको रेगुलर पूरा प्रोसेस फॉलो करना है. अप्रूवल करते समय जो कमिश्नर है वो ये देखेगा कि यार 5 साल का अप्रूवल देना है या 10 साल का अप्रूवल देना है अंडर द न्यू. Section 13, it is proposed to amend the definition of the specified person under section 13(3) to provide that person which is referred to in section 13(3)(b) shall be any person whose total contribution to the trust or the institution during the relevant previous year exceeds rupees 1 lakh or the aggregate up to the end of the relevant previous year exceeds rupees 10 lakhs as the case may be. So earlier जो limit थी 50,000 rupees की उसको इसने enhance करके 1 lakhs या 10 lakh rupees की limit कर दी है. So this is a relatively relaxation which has been given into the trust sections. Next slide. So search and seizure के amendment I'm just skipping के लिए मेरे को भी निकला. Search and seizure. Come to the next slide. Come to the next one. Next. I think search के बाद केवल other amendments है. Come to the next slide. Block के other next. Come on. By other amendments. So other amendments के अंदर what are the other amendments? Come now. Prosecution provision for failure to pay. So TCS के ऊपर पहले prosecution होता था. So if there is a failure to make collection and the payment of TCS अगर आप fail कर गए हो, then there was a prosecution provision. इसको रिलैक्स कर दिया गया. ये कहते थे कि अगर आपने जो भी TCS कलेक्ट किया था वो अगर जमा करा दिया है up to the due date of filing the TCS return, then prosecution will not be launched. ये पहले पिछले साल अमेंडमेंट लेके आए थे टीडीएस के लिए भी कि टीडीएस के प्रोविजंस में प्रोसिक्यूशन लॉन्च नहीं होगा अगर जो भी टीडीएस कलेक्ट किया अगर आपने जमा करा दिया है अप टू द डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग ऑफ द एट एनी टाइम ऑन और बिफोर द टाइम व्हिच इज प्रिस्क्राइब्ड फॉर फाइलिंग द टीसीएस रिटर्न, देन आपके ऊपर प्रोसिक्यूशन नहीं होगा. वो टीडीएस में अमेंडमेंट लास्ट ईयर आ गया था, सेम लाइंस के ऊपर अमेंडमेंट टीसीएस में भी लेके आ गए. Certain penalties to be imposed by the assessing officer. So इस समय rationalize किया. पहले क्या होता था कि higher authorities जो GCIT होता था उन सब का approval लगता था to levy the penalties. ये power अब assessing officer को दी गई है that in all these sections the AO will now have the power to levy the penalty as against Joint Commissioner of Income Tax जो कि पहले लॉ था इसमें. ये छोटा सा सेक्शन है 270 AA। सो 270 AA में एक छोटा सा अमेंडमेंट है, सेक्शन तो छोटा नहीं, सेक्शन तो बड़ा है। So, इस सेक्शन के अंदर देयर वाज अ ग्रांट ऑफ इम्यूनिटी फ्रॉम लेवी ऑफ पेनल्टी, फ्रॉम लेवी ऑफ पेनल्टी एंड प्रोसिक्यूशन। सो अगर तुमने पढ़ा 270A का जो सेक्शन है दैट इज लेवी ऑफ पेनल्टी 50% एंड 200% पेनल्टी लगती है। 270AA के अंदर इट गिव्स यू द इम्यूनिटी फ्रॉम द लेवी ऑफ पेनल्टी। तो अगर मेरा कोई असेसमेंट ऑर्डर पास हुआ है और मैंने एडिशन एक्सेप्ट कर लिया, इफ आई हैव नॉट फाइल्ड एन अपील बिफोर द कमिश्नर ऑफ अपील्स, then I can make an application to the assessing officer saying कि मेरे को 270AA के अंदर immunity दे दो, don't levy penalty and prosecution on me for this, right? इसके अंदर मेरे को एप्लीकेशन करना होता था within 1 month and the assessing officer had to pass an order within 1 month from the end of the month in which the application was received by the AO. ये जो टाइम लिमिट है AO के लिए that has been increased from 1 month to 3 months. That is the only change which has come up over here. These are some miscellaneous amendments, जैसे reference to transfer pricing officer, DRP, appellate tribunal and procedure for appellate tribunal. इन सब के अंदर एक सनसेट डेट थी 31st of March 25 की फॉर नोटिफाइंग द फेसलेस स्कीम। अभी अपने फेसलेस असेसमेंट चल रहा है, राइट? बट फेसलेस इज नॉट देयर इन केस ऑफ DRP एंड अपीलेट ट्रिब्यूनल, DRP एंड ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग ऑफिसर एज वेल। ये तीन केसेस के अंदर इट्स नॉट इन अ फेसलेस मैनर, आज भी इट इज इन अ फेस टू फेस मैनर, बिकॉज़ आज भी हम चाहते हैं तो अपीलेट ट्रिब्यूनल में फिजिकली प्रेजेंट होते हैं, वी नो हु आर द मेंबर्स। Similarly, TPO का भी असेसमेंट होता है तो we know that who is the TPO officer who is doing our assessment, and DRP की केस में भी हमें पता है कौन कमिश्नर्स हमारे सामने बैठे। It's not a faceless manner as against the faceless assessment scheme। जब अभी हम assessment कराते हैं we don't know who is the assessing officer who is passing the assessment order। It's completely in a faceless manner, we really don't know कि कौन। हम हमारा सबमिशन अपलोड करते हैं, वहां से क्वेरी लेटर्स और आते हैं, कुछ है तो अपलोड शो कॉज होता है, उसका रिप्लाई एडिशन होता है तो आ जाता है, फेवरेबल होता है तो फेवरेबल आ जाता है। This is how it works. So, but the faceless scheme was not there for TPO, DRP, and appellate tribunal. और इन सबके अंदर the government had time limit till 31st of March 2025 to notify a scheme. ये faceless में कैसे होगा? ये time limit हर बार extend कर रहे थे. I think 31st March 22, 23, 24, 25, but the government was not able to bring up a scheme. So government ने चालाकी क्या की? उन्होंने बोला हम ये date हटाते हैं, हमारी जब मर्जी होगी तब हम ले आएंगे. So this is what the amendment is. It is proposed to omit the end date which is prescribed for notifying the faceless schemes, as the central government may issue directions beyond the cut-off date of 31st of March 25 if required. So the date has been just removed, a consequential amendment. This is also a simple amendment कि जो भी period है court की proceedings का, if you challenge an order before a court and court has granted a stay in that order, so till the time of so Yalka, it is proposed that the time limit which is provided for all these assessments or all the expiry time limits will be subject to 153 and explanation 1, resulting in exclusion of period commencing from the date of the order granting the court stay until the date on which the certified order vacating the court stay is received by the jurisdictional PCIT and CIT। तो ये जो पीरियड है जहाँ पे कोर्ट के अंदर हमने किसी ऑर्डर को अगर चैलेंज किया और कोर्ट ने उस ऑर्डर को स्टे कर दिया तो till the time the order has been challenged in the court and till the time the court finally decides the matter और वो order received होता है by the principal CIT, वो period exclude कर दिया जाएगा for purpose of completing the period of limitation। जो भी period of limitation section 153 में दिया हुआ है, 206C में भी period of limitation दिया हुआ है, 153A सर्च वाले केसेस में भी period of limitation है, उन सब period में जो कोर्ट का duration है that will be excluded or फिर period of limitation calculate किया जाए to pass any orders। To the next slide. This is the same commencement date and the end date for period stay to be excluded। ये सब sections के अंदर amendment लाया गया है। Reference has been made to a principal commissioner or commissioner in certain cases। Time limit for completing assessment under 153, 153B के अंदर search cases के ऊपर time limit है। 153, 158 BA के अंदर time limit for completion of block assessment है। 263 and 264 के जो orders हैं, सब period, उन सब orders के अंदर जो भी court की proceeding का time limit है, that will be excluded to arrive at the final time। These are all proposals which are related to, gift city, इसके अंदर काफी सारे रिलैक्सेशंस कर दिए हैं। मेनली क्या है कि जो भी सनसेट डेट्स आ रही थी 31st ऑफ मार्च 25 को, ऑल दो सनसेट डेट्स हैव बीन एक्सटेंडेड टू 31st ऑफ मार्च 2030। तो जो अमेंडमेंट आया, बिकॉज गिफ्ट सिटी इज अ यूनिक कॉन्सेप्ट इन इटसेल्फ, जहां पे वो काफी बेनिफिट्स देते हैं टू एनी कॉर्पोरेशन व्हिच इज एस्टैब्लिश्ड इन गिफ्ट सिटी। गिफ्ट सिटी इज देयर आई थिंक इन अहमदाबाद, गुजरात, एंड वहां पे सनसेट हो रहे थे काफी सारे इनकम टैक्स के प्रोविजंस का to 31st of March 25. That time limit has all been extended to 31st of March 2030. Come to the next slide. These are the MSME classification limits. They have all been revised, and दो limits होती है, investment limit and turnover limit for a micro, small and medium enterprise. तो जो investment limit थी, which was 1 crore for a micro enterprise, is proposed to be increased to 5 crore. स्मॉल एंटरप्राइज के लिए 10 करोड़ का इन्वेस्टमेंट लिमिट 50 करोड़ और मीडियम के लिए 50 करोड़ से 200 करोड़। एंड सिमिलरली जो टर्नओवर लिमिट थी, सॉरी 1 करोड़ टू 2.5 करोड़, 10 टू 25 करोड़ एंड 50 करोड़ टू 125 करोड़, एंड टर्नओवर लिमिट जो थी वो 5 करोड़ से 10, 50 करोड़ से 100 एंड 200 करोड़ से 500 करोड़। इसका कॉन्सिक्वेंस क्या होगा इन द ऑडिट?
Provisions under 43BH and the interest provision section 16 MSME Act would be followed.
Would be followed. Consequential provision ये होगा because of this increase in the limits. A lot of companies will now fall under the MSME classification, due to which section 43BH जो कहता है कि MSMEs should be paid within the time limit which is specified in micro MSME Act, वो केवल micro और small के ऊपर लगता है section, that will increase. Number of companies which are falling under that section will increase, जिसके कारण 43BH का disallowance बढ़ सकता है, and similarly the interest cost जो अपन calculate करते हैं due to non-payment within the time limit, that can also increase. So this would be a consequence due to enhancement of the limit. Next slide. Yeah, I think this is the last slide, which says that the income tax bill and new income tax bill is proposed to be introduced. And the latest news was that yesterday the bill was cleared by the cabinet, and now the bill will be presented into the parliament. Now the question which is really coming is that ये कब से applicable होगा? So for sure it will not be applicable from the financial year 25-26 because the union budget has introduced most of it. It will come up into the parliament, and I think it will be open for public consultation. Public consultation के बाद ये law बनना चाहिए, या ये हो सकता है कि उसमें एक date होगी that it will be applicable from this year, maybe 1st April 27 or 1st April 28, because बीच का एक time period देंगे just to understand and absorb what are the provisions of the new income tax bill are. Because it's a big change. 1961 say they are completely changing the direct tax code, income tax code, and will bring up a new tax code. So people need time to absorb and understand कि क्या provisions है, कैसे apply होंगे. So they'll not apply it immediately, and there will be a date from which it will be applicable. So yeah, that's all. That's all.
तो थैंक यू योगेश। इनफैक्ट अभी अपन जो बात कर रहे थे, ये जो डेफिनेशन चेंज हुई है रिलेटेड टू एमएसएमई, तो हमने जो डिस्कस किया वो ये किया कि जो 43B के पेमेंट के डिसोलेंस हैं, तो बहुत सारे जो वेंडर्स हैं वो अब इस डेफिनेशन में कवर हो जाएंगे। पहले जितने होते थे उससे भी शायद डबल लोग इसमें कवर हो जाएंगे, क्योंकि लिमिट्स हैव बीन सिग्निफिकेंटली इंक्रीज बाय द गवर्नमेंट। तो ये तो एक हो गया इनकम टैक्स के अंदर कॉन्सिक्वेंस। बट इसके अलावा मेन फोकस जो है इसका एमएसएमई की डेफिनेशन को इंक्रीज करने का, वो ये है कि गवर्नमेंट की जितनी भी पॉलिसीज हैं वो अभी बहुत सारे जो एंटरप्राइजेस एमएसएमई की डेफिनेशंस में फॉल नहीं होते हैं, तो वो बेनिफिट्स नहीं ले पाते हैं। जैसे कोई मान लो कोई बेकरी है, मैंने कुछ एक आर्टिकल्स पढ़े थे, वहां मैंने देखा, सपोज देयर इज वन बेकरी which now has 1.5 crore investments in the state of art ovens and a turnover of rupees 6 crore. तो जो इन 6 करोड़ का टर्नओवर हो गया तो क्या हुआ? एमएसएमई की डेफिनेशन में अगर टर्नओवर आपका 5 करोड़ है तो आप माइक्रो हो, और इसका टर्नओवर 6 करोड़ है तो माइक्रो नहीं था अभी तक के डेफिनेशन। बट नाउ दे आर बेसिकली माइक्रो एंटरप्राइज, मतलब जो पहले मीडियम था, सॉरी स्मॉल था, स्मॉल से वो माइक्रो में आ गया, जो मीडियम था वो स्मॉल में आ गया, और जो मीडियम भी नहीं था, लार्ज था या बड़ा एंटरप्राइज था, वो मीडियम हो गया। तो जितने भी बेनिफिट्स, सपोज ये अपन बेकरी की बात कर रहे हैं, तो उसको जो माइक्रो लोन्स से रिलेटेड गवर्नमेंट के बेनिफिट्स हैं वो अब मिलने लग जाएंगे। तो बेसिकली बहुत सारे एंटरप्राइज एक नीचे की कैटेगरी में आ जाएंगे, माइक्रो स्मॉल में आ जाएगा, मीडियम सॉरी स्मॉल माइक्रो में आ जाएगा, मीडियम स्मॉल में आ जाएगा, और कई सारे लार्ज जो है वो मीडियम की कैटेगरी में आ जाएंगे। एंड ये क्योंकि डेफिनेशन में आप देखेंगे करीब करीब इन्होंने डबल कर दी है सारी लिमिट्स। सो दैट इज द बिगर एडवांटेज व्हिच एमएसएमईज will have. So now with this, I invite Siddharth to deal on the indirect tax proposals. अरे तेरा है क्या?
वो गलत आ रही थी,
पीपीटी गलत आ रही है।
तो सही लगेगा,
वो लैपटॉप में है सर ऑफिस में।
तो वैसे ही बता दो। हमारे तो ये जब तक कि अपना पीपीटी मंगा रहा है, कुछ एनालिसिस मैंने कुछ आर्टिकल्स में मैंने पढ़े थे, मैं वो आपको बताता हूँ। Rather I will read them and regarding startups, जैसे इन्होंने बताया है that many people from startup ecosystem have already begun writing how happy they are with the rupees 10,000 crore extension to the government's fund or fund, which was announced by finance minister today. ये एक analysis था. But focus is more on why this is such a big deal. Because let's be frank, much of India does not understand its significance.
का नीचे फोल्डर खुला हो।
It all began in 2016 when the government has first announced a rupees 10,000 crore fund for startups.
करके
SIDBI would invest that money into venture capital fund as a limited partner who would make it accessible
इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स
to numerous startups across India. SIDBI एक काफी important रोल है स्टार्टअप्स के लिए SIDBI का। बहुत जगह SIDBI जो है वो अलग-अलग तरीके के स्टार्टअप्स में फंडिंग करती रहती है।
इसको मेरी मेल से
Since that SIDBI has become why so many new venture capitals have emerged and continue to emerge in India. Plus, it has also bagged new funds from well-known VCs like Bloom Ventures, etc.
मेल आईडी
And these VC funds received that rupees 10k crore from SIDBI
इतने में आ जाएगी ना @ खाना नहीं बोलना
and have deployed rupees 75k crore into almost 1,000 startup, which includes 18 unicorns today.
तो ये करो मेरी में
इतना important aspect है.
खाना नहीं बोलना
People do not realize, but in today's date, Government of India through SIDBI is one of the largest backers of startup funding in the country. And this also sends the message out to global investors that India is serious about its startup, willing to back them with taxpayers' money. Now doubling down with another rupees 10k crore deepens our commitment.
हाँ आउटलुक
It allows SIDBI to invest bigger and more aggressively
आउटलुक
in
वाले
existing
आईडी
and
पे
new venture capital funds, ensuring they can raise larger funds, means bigger checks for the startups, which is a
डायरेक्ट
big need for the Indian startup ecosystem. It is vote of confidence in India's
अरे आउटलुक वाले
entrepreneurship spirit.
तो उस पे
It is a foundation for India's next generation of
खुली है
economic.
मेरी खुली है
तो ये स्टार्टअप के अंदर
अरे नहीं खुली ना
इन्वेस्ट करने का और ये जो फंड है
मेरी
इसका
टाइप
बेनिफिट जो ग्लोबल एक्सेस कर रहे हैं वो ये है। क्या हुआ? अच्छा, एफडीआई की अपन बात कर रहे थे। एफडीआई किसमें इंक्रीज किया है?
खुली क्या
इंश्योरेंस में। तो 1999 तक इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर में किसी भी तरीके का कोई
अरे ये लैपटॉप
FDI नहीं था।
दे दो ना
नहीं, नहीं,
बापू
नहीं।
नगर
फिर
में
जब
जाओ।
ये मोदी गवर्नमेंट आई, मोदी गवर्नमेंट से पहले 1999 में सबसे पहले 26%
जीमेल से मेरी
FDI अलाउ किया। तो बाद में जाके 2014
या फिर 14
में
स्टार पे भेज दो
49% and later on it was increased to 74%। और
इसकी
उसकी
मेरे को
वजह
पता
से
लगा।
बहुत सारी MNCs ने जो है इंडिया के अंदर
ठीक है एक बार लैपटॉप
इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर के अंदर इन्वेस्ट किया। बट इवन टुडे हाउ मच इंश्योरेंस इज बीइंग टेकन अप बाय द पीपल, कितना बड़ा मार्केट है और कितना हम एक्चुअली इंश्योरेंस ले रहे हैं, आइडिया आपको? इवन टुडे इवन 5% of the total insurance business which India can have is not covered. आज भी 5% से ज्यादा लोग या जितना जो टोटल इंश्योरेंस हो सकता है इंडिया में, इट इज स्टिल 5%। आज बैंकिंग जो है हर जगह पहुंच चुकी है, बैंकिंग गांव में भी है, हर आदमी का बैंक अकाउंट है, जनधन, आधार खाता और ये सारे बैंक से रिलेटेड अकाउंट इंडिया में लोगों के खोले हुए हैं। बट इंश्योरेंस जो है वो हर किसी के पास नहीं है, बल्कि 95% लोगों के पास इंश्योरेंस आज भी नहीं है। एंड देन सपोज कोई लेता भी है तो वो 2 साल बाद में वापस हो सकता है, उसको रिन्यू नहीं करवा रहा है,
उसमें
या
दिखाई नहीं
so
रहा है
that consistency is also not there. तो द गवर्नमेंट थिंक्स कि भाई एक तो इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर में बाहर से किसी को पैसा लगाना है, तो वो लिमिट को उन्होंने 74% से अब 100% कर दिया। सो वन कैन हैव होली ओन सब्सिडरी इन इंडिया। कोई बाहर की कोई फॉरेन कंपनी है लाइक अविवा या कोई भी दूसरी कंपनी, दे कैन हैव 100% शेयर होल्डिंग इन इंडियन इंश्योरेंस कंपनी। एंड their vision is, government's thought process is कि सब यहाँ पे जो भी इंश्योरेंस प्रोडक्ट्स हैं उसको और थोड़ा कॉम्पिटिटिव बनाया जाए। तो बाहर से जब पैसा आएगा तो दे में हैव ऑफर सम मोर कॉम्पिटिटिव प्राइसेस फॉर द इंश्योरेंस प्रोडक्ट्स। तो अल्टीमेटली इस तरीके के डिसीजन लेने का पर्पस गवर्नमेंट का यह है कि इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर के अंदर जो पैसा है आए और ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग इंश्योरेंस से कवर हो। तो दैट इज द पर्पस। तो जब भी इस तरीके का कोई अमेंडमेंट आता है तो हमें पीछे भी जाना चाहिए कि ऐसा क्यों किया गया है। एक और चीज गवर्नमेंट लेके आ रही है, व्हाट इज दैट? न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी, ग्रीन एनर्जी, क्लीन एनर्जी, न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी की गवर्नमेंट बात कर रही है। तो पहले जब न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी की बात हुई थी, आप लोग बहुत ही मेरे ख्याल से 2009 की बात है, when there was a deal which was called 123, तो डील का नाम ये दिया गया था। और उसके अंदर जो प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स हैं उनकी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी से रिलेटेड एक बिल लेके आए कि साहब अगर आप न्यूक्लियर यहाँ पे एस्टैब्लिश करोगे, न्यूक्लियर प्लांट है ना, एटॉमिक एनर्जी प्लांट यहाँ एस्टैब्लिश करोगे, तो अगर उसकी वजह से कोई नुकसान हो जाता है ना, क्योंकि न्यूक्लियर प्लांट एस्टैब्लिश करना और नुकसान क्या हो सकता है, उसकी वजह से क्या नुकसान हो सकता है?
रिएक्टर ब्लास्ट हो जाएगा तो
अगर कोई लापरवाही हो जाए और वो रिएक्टर में ब्लास्ट हो जाए तो क्या होगा, है ना, हिरोशिमा नागासाकी। सो अगर ऐसा कुछ हो जाए तो देन हुज रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी इज दैट? तो वो बिल के अंदर ये था कि सब ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी जो होगी वो जो भी यहाँ पे ये इंस्टॉल करेंगे उन लोगों की होगी। अभी ये जो इसका प्राइवेटाइजेशन कर रहे हैं जिसमें ये प्राइवेट सेक्टर को भी अलाउ करेंगे और बाहर से भी पैसा हो सकता है इसमें आए, तो इन दैट वो जो कंडीशंस उनकी है रिलेटेड टू लायबिलिटी ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ दिस न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी, उसको कहीं ना कहीं शिफ्ट करने की बात चल रही है, या वो लायबिलिटी नहीं रहेगी ऐसा कुछ कहने की वो बात कर रहे हैं। सो न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी में भी इस तरीके के लॉ में ये अमेंड करेंगे सो दैट अल्टीमेटली वी कैन हैव द बेनिफिट ऑफ द न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी। तो और रीजन इज ऑब्वियस, क्योंकि न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी एक ऐसी एनर्जी है जिससे बिल्कुल अगर देखा जाए, क्योंकि वो सिस्टमेटिक वे से, और इंडिया में तो अगर हम बात करें, अगर इंडिया और चाइना को कंपेयर करें, मैं एक जगह देख रहा था, तो इंडिया अभी न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी के मामले में आई थिंक जो लेवल है वो लेवल 2 पे ही चल रही है, जबकि चाइना जो है वो एडवांस लेवल पे न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी के अंदर काम कर रहे हैं। सो दैट इज वन मोर थिंग विच द गवर्नमेंट हैज डन थ्रू दिस बजट। और एक इन्होंने बजट में लेके आए रिगार्डिंग दैट आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस।
Centers, data centers.
So they are developing certain centers.
Own data centers, artificial intelligence, so that India has its own AI app.
Yes. क्या वो लैपटॉप लेने गया क्या?
हाँ सर,
अरे यार तू
वो सर अटैचमेंट उसमें गलत आ गया।
अच्छा
So we can start the discussion.
हाँ जितने तुम डिस्कशन शुरू करो।
Yes. Sorry for the inconvenience.
इनको नया नया टैक्स बता दें।
Although PPT थोड़ा सा अटैचमेंट गलत हो गया उसमें, तो जिस वजह से। So good afternoon everyone. Now it's time to the GST related budget proposals. So for the purpose of indirect taxation, we will be discussing the proposals with reference to GST only today. Okay. So first proposal which was proposed by the Finance Act 2025 is in relation to the definition of ISD, that is Input Service Distributor. So anyone knows what is ISDs?
Distributes the inputs to various branches of
Yes. So ITC related to goods or services, or both, or related to services only. Yeah. So as the name suggests, it is input service distributor. So the office, any branch office or the head office, which has to distribute the ITC or carrying out the expenses which are related to the different of branches, or branches carrying out the expenses which are related to that branch, or all other branches, or related to head office. So that particular branch or head office has to distribute the ITC. Although the mechanism of ISD was not compulsory earlier. So now from 1st of April 2025, an amendment has already been made that the mechanism of ISD will be compulsory with effect from 1st of April 2025. So earlier also, last Finance Act also, that is Finance Act 2024 also, some amendment was there in relation to ISD. The definition of the ISD was amended last year also, and now it is amended again. So what was the amendment in 2024 Finance Act? Although earlier at the starting of the GST, there was a doubt that whether the ISD can distribute the ITC related to the taxes which branch office or head office has paid under reverse charge mechanism. Because the definition which was provided under the law in relation to the ISD was so that it was creating some confusion that the ITC related to the reverse charge is not included in the definition and not distributable. So earlier, the amendment was made in that section, that is section 2, subsection 61, which defines what is input service distributor is. So earlier in 2024, they have included the section related to section 9, subsection 3 and 3, subsection 3 and 4 of CGST. So again, confusion arises that whether the GST paid under IGST Act under reverse charge will be covered for the distribution or not. So to remove that ambiguity, they have again amended the section, and now they have inserted the reference of section 5 subsection 3 and 4 of the IGST Act. So the ambiguity or the confusion that whether the GST paid under RCM under IGST Act will be covered for the distribution of GST through ISD is not now been removed. And this amendment will take effect from 1st of April 2005 when the ISD mechanism will get compulsory. So then next amendment is in relation to the next amendment is again in the definition, various definitions. The next amendment is in relation to the local authority, the definition of the local authority. So earlier there was confusion in relation to the local authority, the definition provided under the GST law. But it was bit confusing that what will be covered under the definition of the local authority. Although as per the definition, the panchayat, municipality or municipal committee at Jila Parishad or district board or any other authority legally entitled to or interested by the CG or state government with the control or management of a municipal or local fund. ये डेफिनेशन हाल फिलहाल जीएसटी एक्ट में है तो यहाँ पे जो अमेंडमेंट प्रपोज है they have made the amendment in the word municipal or local fund, they have made it municipal fund or local fund. So making it more clear and they have also they have also inserted some explanation which defines what is local fund and municipal fund. Okay, so earlier it was not defined under the act that what is municipal fund or what is local fund. So now the ambiguity that what will be covered under the local authority is now more clear. In this regard, recently a circular has also been issued with reference to the DDA, that is Delhi Development Authority, by the CGST government, in which they have decided, they have clarified that the Delhi Development Authority will not be considered as the local authority. Although in GST, if you people know that in case of central government, state government, and local authority, if you receive any services from these people, these flexible persons, then the person receiving the services has to pay GST under reverse charge mechanism. So the doubt was arising here in Jaipur also for the purpose of JDA, Jaipur Development Authority. Doubt was arising that whether the JDA is a local authority or a governmental authority. Because in case of local authority, the liability to pay GST is on the recipient of the services from JDA. And in case of governmental authority, certain services of governmental authority are exempt, or the governmental authority itself is liable to pay the GST under forward charge mechanism. So they have more cleared it through the definition, through the amendment, they have cleared the definition of the local authority. Now they have clarified or amended that the bodies like municipal committee or Zila Parishad or Nagar Nigam or Nagar Panchayat or Nagar Palika sort of persons will only be get covered under the definition of the local authority. Okay. So now the next amendment is in relation to section 12 and section 13 of the CGST Act. So if anyone knows section 12 and 13 related to which provisions? Time of supply. So section 12 is related to time of supply in relation to supply of goods and 13 is services. So in those section there was subsection 4 earlier vouchers that provides the time of supply in relation to the supply of vouchers. Okay. So that section provides specific time of supply in relation to supply of vouchers. So earlier, recently in December 24, only the government has issued a clarification in relation to the taxability of vouchers. Or earlier in Madras High Court, Honorable Madras High Court, in case of Kalyan Jewellers, has ruled out that the supply of voucher itself is not a supply under the GST. Although what is voucher is the consideration of underlying goods or services. Meaning thereby, if some jeweler is giving you voucher for a certain purchase of gold, so voucher itself is not a supply, although that voucher of a particular amount is a consideration for supply of underlying goods, that is jewelry. That may be redeemable at that point of time only, or that may be redeemable at the any future day. So the as ruled out by the Madras High Court in case of Kalyan Jewellers, and as also clarified by the central government by its circular in December 24, that the voucher itself is not a supply. So there is no need of separate time of supply provisions under the GST Act. So to cop up or to align the ruling of Madras High Court and the clarification issued by the government, the provisions of subsection 4 has been proposed to be omitted. So there is no need of any provision of a specific time of supply in relation to the vouchers. So anyone has any doubt in this? नहीं ओमिट तो हो गया लेकिन क्यों हुआ ओमिट? तो voucher is itself is not a supply. तो पहले क्यों था provision वहाँ पे?
Because there were two cases. One was that the supply is fixed. That I am giving you a voucher, it can be redeemed only for jewelry. But if I am giving you a voucher for a mall, it can be used in a food court or for clothes or for video games. So there the rate of supply is not fixed. But in jewelry it was fixed, so we could take the GST amount previously. So it has been omitted.
Supply be considered at the time when we are redeeming the voucher at that time. Us time.
No, in subsection 4 itself was provided that if the value is already decided and the underlying goods is already decided, then first day it will be taxable. And time of supply, first day it will arise the time of supply. Now, as the government has itself clarified that it is not a supply, it is only a consideration for the underlying goods. So, a consideration can be in kind or can be in money. So time of supply will apply according to the provisions of that underlying goods or services only. There is no need to have different provisions for the supply or voucher itself. That's why they have omitted this particular subsection.
कौन सी
आगे पीछे हो गया ना इसमें पीछे दो पीछे Okay. So, hello. क्या हो गया?
In case of services, time of supply is when would be earlier if the payment is made earlier. So in case of vouchers, payment has already been made at an earlier date. Could those not contradict each other?
No, voucher here consideration is identified, and when it will arise or when it will get realized at the time you will redeem the voucher.
Payment was received earlier.
No, if you are purchasing that voucher by paying something, then you can say that. Or if that voucher is redeemable at a future date, then the date you will redeem the voucher will be the date of payment towards that particular service or goods. So the consideration which you are paying for purchasing the voucher is not a supply as clarified by the government. उस टाइम पे कुछ भी नहीं है. At the moment you will redeem that voucher, no, that will be considered as the time of supply as per 12(1) or 13(1), whichever the provision will be applicable. So the next, yes. So as जैसा भूपेंद्र सर ने बताया कि the further amendments proposed in the direct tax proposals, the government will be foregoing 1 lakh crore rupees. So the next amendment which is proposed in the GST Act, that is track and trace system, is somewhere coping up with the or compensating with the that 1 lakh crore loss to the government. So if anyone has read the budget or anyone has read this proposed amendment, can elaborate about this new section of track and trace system in GST. Anyone?
Second,
Trace system.
trace.
So no one have read the budget from the perspective of GST, or no one have read this particular section itself. GST नहीं पढ़ा, क्यों काम नहीं आता,
अब
मेरा उसके पास हो जाओगे
आगे आने वाले टाइम में जीएसटी काम आएगा, इनकम टैक्स इतना सा हो जाएगा।
और नहीं जब बिना GST पढ़े पास हो जाओगे सीएम में।
योगेश चला गया तो बोल रहा हूँ।
तो ऑल्दो जितना डे टू डे लाइफ में इनकम टैक्स काम आता है, it might be considered that GST is not useful for day to day life. But even though it is very useful or it is very important. So what the next, what this system is, the government has proposed to insert a new section, that is section 148A under the GST Act, which talks about the track and trace system. So if you have heard that after the implementation of GST, there are lots of cases in relation to the bogus sale and purchase. People are only supplying the issuing the invoices and not supplying the underlying goods or services after implementation of GST. So that this proposed amendment is in relation to carve out those cases of bogus ITC itself. So the sensitive industries which are more indulged in this type of bogus ITC, the focus of this amendment will be on those industries, will encase in those industries. Because there are some industries like, for example, tobacco industries, where huge amount of bogus invoicing is getting from the implementation of GST. And other one is scrap industry, scrap related to metal scrap, or whether it is related to paper scrap or some, and other one is related marble industry, where also the people are using to issue only invoices and they are supplying underlying goods to some other person, to another person, and for making it adjustment in the accounts, they are issuing only the invoices. So they can manipulate the stock records and they do not have to pay the GST or getting again routed back the GST in some other form. Okay, so this system is in relation to that person only. So what is proposed in this section, that the government will notify the goods in case of which you have to apply some unique identification number or some electronic device on the on those goods. So the government can track the movement of those goods. And the government can also, or government will also notify the person, identify the person on the basis of its data analytics, and will notify the persons to whom these provisions will be compulsory. And those person will require to get the unique identification number generated before movement of the goods, and they can use the unique some electronic device so their movement can be tracked. And in this connection only, they have inserted a new section for the penalty provisions also. So what will happen is, after the amendments, the government, to whom the government will notify as a supplier who has to apply these special provisions, if he does not follow the section or the instructions of the government, he will get penalized by rupees 1 lakh or 10% of the tax whichever is there. So minimum penalty there will be rupees 1 lakh or tax 10% of the tax, whichever is higher. So this amendment is looking to somewhere to carve out the bogus ITC related cases. So in this connection only earlier recently in 2024 only for the tobacco industries, the government has taken up some system of information about the machine. So every tobacco manufacturer who has installed certain machinery has to file some declaration or file separate return on the GST portal about the machinery which he has installed, the manufacturing capacity of that machinery and the manufacturing which he is getting from that machinery. So now that information will also be linked with the new track and trace system. Similarly, for the scrap related matters, recently for the scrap related metal scrap related cases, the government has recently in 2024 only has introduced a mechanism of TDS and TCS. If you know, under the GST, TDS applies only in case of the supplies made by the government to the, payment made by the government to the private entities. In GST, TDS provision applies only on the government. So it is the first time which, when the government has put TDS provisions in relation to the other than government entities also. So that step was also in relation to carve out the bogus ITC related cases. Because the scrap industry is the biggest producer of this bogus ITC in India. We are also looking out certain cases. So most of the cases are in relation to the metal scraps only. So this amendment is in relation to कहीं ना कहीं वो उसी से related carve out करने के लिए उन चीजों को कि बोगस आईटीसी के केसेस जो है किस तरीके से उसको carve out किया जाए. Although जो इनवॉइस के प्रोविजंस और ई-वेबिल प्रोविजंस भी इम्प्लीमेंट हुए हैं जीएसटी में भी वो भी कहीं ना कहीं इससे लिंक होंगे आगे. So the movement of that goods will be tracked since starting from the supplier's factory till the delivery of to the recipient's address. So next. So this is the penalty provisions which the government will be introducing in the new section 122B, for providing the penalty for the persons who is not following the track and trace system. So next. So that 12.4 and 13.4 we have already discussed in relation to the vouchers. So now the most awaited from the, amendment from the perspective of the government. So first of all, this amendment is related to section 17.5B of the CBSE Act. So anyone knows this this section 17.5B, what this section says? So first of all, what is section 17.5? The section which provides for the certain transactions in case of which ITC will be blocked and will not be available. So there subsection subclause D is there which talks about.
Other than own devices.
So basically what this clause talks about is any services procured, any goods or services or both received for construction of immovable property on his own account, whether it is in furtherance of business or not, it doesn't affect. So कोई भी goods और services जो कि immovable property के construction के लिए आपने use किया है on his own account will not be allowed you to claim as the creditor. Okay, so in this connection, recently a Supreme Court judgment has came. Anyone knows about that judgment? Yes. So what the Supreme Court has ruled out in that Safari Retreat judgment, if any can brief out.
So it is mentioned the distinction between plant and machinery or plant or machinery.
Yes.
So in plant and machinery, there is a definition mentioned in the definition for 17.5 clause C, but there is no definition for plant or machinery.
Yes.
So the Supreme Court mentioned that they consciously made that distinction between plant and machinery. So it has finally concluded that plant will include any land and building but for the purpose of clause B, but not will be included in clause B.
Yes. So तो एक और इसी का सब क्लॉज है डी से पहले 17(5)(c दैट टॉक्स अबाउट द वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सर्विसेज कि अगर आपने कंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए कोई वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सर्विसेज लिए तो उसकी भी इनपुट आपको नहीं मिलेगी बट दोनों ही जगह पे एक्सेप्शन है प्लांट एंड मशीनरी का तो 17(5)(c में वर्ड दैट हैज बीन यूज्ड इज प्लांट एंड मशीनरी and in 17(5)(b the word used is plant or machinery. And in the explanation of 17(5)(c and d, the word plant and machinery has been explained and not the word plant or machinery. Okay, so the matter goes to the Supreme Court in case of that safari retreat. So where the Supreme Court has held that in 17(5)(c specifically plant and machinery has been used to whom you have explained also in the explanation. But in 17(5)(d, you have used the word plant or machinery. That is, it is deliberately you have used the word plant or machinery. That means the plant or machinery have something else or have some other meaning than the word plant and machinery. उन्होंने कार्गो क्या किया कि प्लांट और मशीनरी आपने डेलिबरेटली वहां पे प्लांट और मशीनरी लिखा है अदरवाइज जब आप 17(5)(c में प्लांट एंड मशीनरी लिखे और आप एक्सप्लेन भी प्लांट एंड मशीनरी को ही कर रहे हैं तो यहाँ पे भी आप प्लांट एंड मशीनरी लिख सकते थे तो उन्होंने नहीं लिखा मतलब यू हैव डेलिबरेटली यूज दिस वर्ड प्लांट और मशीनरी सो दे हैव एलोबरेटेड दैट वर्ड प्लांट in the safari retreat case so what supreme court has held that the to decide anything, any building or any movable property, whether it is a plant or not, you have to done certain tests. That is functionality test. What they have ruled out in that if any building itself is constructed to provide a service or provide a goods, provide a service that can be considered as a plant, and input and for the construction of that plant can be claimed you have to apply for the function test. Okay. So what comes from that decision is कि आपने अगर बिल्डिंग कोई बनाई है for the purpose of leasing, licensing, तो that can be considered as plant. और अगर आपने खुद के own use के लिए कोई बिल्डिंग बनाई है, like आपने factory building बनाई or you have constructed or your office, like in our office, so that cannot be considered as the plant. That will be considered as your immobile property, or that will be considered as your own account. And if you have prepared or constructed some immobile property for leasing out or licensing back to someone else, that cannot be considered on his own account. सो इसको कहते हुए उन्होंने सफारी रिट्रीट के फेवर में डिसीजन दिया तो गवर्नमेंट व्हाट टू रूल आउट टू ओवररूल दैट डिसीजन ऑफ द सफारी रिट्रीट्स ऑफ ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट the government retrospectively with effect from 1st of July 2017 has replaced the word plant or machinery with the word plant and machinery and have specifically inserted an explanation 2 under the section 17(5)(c) and d notwithstanding anything contained in any decree, court decision, the word plant or machinery shall be read as plant and machinery with effect from 1/7/2017 only. सो उन्होंने वो जो सफारी रिट्रीट का डिसीजन था सुप्रीम कोर्ट का सफारी रिट्रीट के केस में उसको ओवररूल करते हुए पूरा प्लांट और मशीनरी को प्लांट एंड मशीनरी कर दिया. So if you have to claim or you want to claim ITs in relation to construction of movable property, you have to prove that that building is plant and machine, which is already explained in the explanation 1 of section 17(5)(c) and b in the act. बट यहाँ पे एक कैच है कि गवर्नमेंट ने यहाँ पे प्लांट और मशीनरी को प्लांट एंड मशीनरी में कन्वर्ट कर दिया. But in safari retreats, the government has pressurized or have thrown some light on the word on his own account. The government has not amended or not bring any amendment on that word on his own account. So someone can prove that that particular building is not my own account, hence I can claim the ITC. तो own account का मतलब क्या है कि if I am preparing or I am constructing the building for my use only, my personal use only for providing the services through that office, then it can be considered as the immovable property. Otherwise, for leasing back or licensing, it can be considered as plant. It cannot be considered on its own account. So ITC can be allowed in that case also, although it is a very litigative issue. But one view can be taken in that line also. Any confusion in this? नहीं पता भी है कि समझ में नहीं आया ऊपर से इसलिए कंफ्यूजन ही नहीं है कोई बचा ही नहीं कुछ पूछने के लिए. So the next amendment is related to section 34, that is credit notes. So credit note की case में if anyone has dealt any show cause notices or orders of the department or anyone has worked for the purpose of GST audit carried out by the GST department, they are raising an para in relation to if the supplier has issued a credit note, he has reduced his tax liability. And the department is saying that there is a requirement that your recipient to whom you have earlier issued an invoice and now you are issuing a credit note has to reverse its ITC. Then only you can reduce your tax liability with respect to that credit note. So there was no specific provision under the GST Act or under this GST under the section 34. There only a proviso was provided that the incidence of tax has not been passed on. Only one condition was there that the incidence of tax has not been passed on to the any person. Then only you can reduce your tax liability. First thing was that. And in section 15 for the post-sale discount, there was condition that the recipient has to reverse its ITC with reference to the credit note you are issuing or the supplier is issuing. Otherwise, then there was no such condition that the recipient has to reduce its ITC or reverse its ITC. So, to remove that ambiguity or to remove that, they have changed this proviso and make two sub clauses of this proviso. And in sub clause 1, they have mentioned that input tax credit as is attributable to such a credit note if availed has not been reversed by the recipient where such recipient is a registered person. Okay, so provided that no reduction in the output tax liability of the supplier shall be permitted. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि जब तक आपका रेसिपिएंट अगर वो रजिस्टर्ड है उसने आपकी इनवॉइस के अगेंस्ट में आईटीसी लिया है तो जब तक वो अपना क्रेडिट नोट का आईटीसी रिवर्स नहीं कर देता द सप्लायर कैन नॉट रिड्यूस इट्स आउटपुट टैक्स लायबिलिटी. और इसी संबंध में एक अभी 2024 लास्ट ईयर एक सर्कुलर इशू किया था गवर्नमेंट ने जहां पे गवर्नमेंट ने ये कहा था कि भाई अभी इसका कोई ऐसा मैकेनिज्म नहीं है बट क्योंकि ये रिक्वायरमेंट है इसके लिए आप सीए सर्टिफिकेट या फिर सेल्फ सर्टिफिकेट लेके आ सकते हैं फ्रॉम द सीए ऑफ द रेसिपिएंट that recipient has reversed the ITC with reference to the credit note and on the basis of that certificate the supplier can reduce its tax liability. और अभी अगर आपने सुना होगा अगर कंप्लायंस आप में से कोई करता है तो जो आईएमएस प्रोविजंस हैं इनवॉइस मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम जिसमें कि एक्सेप्ट रिजेक्ट पेंडिंग करना होता है आपको कोई भी इनवॉइसेस रिफ्लेक्टिंग इन योर जीएसटीआर 2B you have to take 3 actions on that those invoices which are reflecting in your GSTR 2B. Either you have to accept that invoice or you have to reject that invoice or you have to pending that invoice. So in IMS also there is provision, there is option to accept, reject pending the credit notes which are reflecting in your GSTR 2B. If you reject the credit note, it automatically increase the liability of your supplier in the next month. It is already implemented on the GST portal, although it is not compulsory as such. Although उसका भी अभी अपन आगे देखेंगे कि वो भी इसका भी proposal GST एक्ट में गवर्नमेंट लेके आ गई है आईएमएस को भी कंपलसरी करने का. So this amendment is in relation to the inserting a specific clause under the GST Act which requires reversal of ITC by the recipient of goods or services. So this is the provisions related to the IMS. Although IMS provisions has been implemented on the GST portal since 5 to 6 months back, but there was no legal backing of that IMS in the GST law. It is only provided by the GST portal and implemented by the GST portal. GST law में उसका कोई भी legal backing अभी तक available नहीं था. If we talk about the section 38, that is talk about the ITC of GST Act. वहां पे लिखा हुआ था कि फाइनेंस बिल एंड ऑटो जनरेटेड system auto generated statement will be available to the recipient on the basis of which the recipient can claim the ITC. तो उन्होंने auto generated को हटा के as statement in subsection 1 and 2 में रिप्लेस कर दिया उसको auto generated नहीं होगा. अब recipient has to generate the GSTR 2B by taking action in the form of accept, reject and pending. So what the recipient needs to do is he has to take the action, 3 types of the action on all the invoices, then he has to generate the GSTR 2B, then only the GSTR 2B will be generated and the ITC on the basis of your actions will get auto-populated in GSTR 3B. And only after the generation of GSTR 2B, the recipient will be or the supplier will be allowed to file the GSTR 3B returns. अगर आप 2B जनरेट नहीं करते हैं तो आपको 3B फाइल करने दिया नहीं जाएगा. उसका भी सेक्शन जो है नेक्स्ट अमेंडमेंट 39 सेक्शन जो है उसमें ये प्रपोज किया है you have to generate this auto generate GSTR 2B statement for claiming the ITC, then only you will be provided or allowed to file the GSTR 3B return. Okay, so the amendment proposed in section 38 is in relation to the legal backing of IMS and proposed for the section 39 is for the legal backing of allowing or restricting filing of GSTR 3B without generating the GSTR 2B. So this is what I have already told you that the section 39 amendment which talks about the compulsory generation of 2B and only then you will be allowed to file the GSTR 3B return. Next. So this is in relation to something if anyone has read अभी IDT पढ़ लिया आप लोगों ने GST की क्लासेस होगी आपकी चल रहे. तो वहां पे अगर किसी ने अपील फाइल की हो प्रैक्टिकली भी ऑफिस में तो वहां पे एक प्री डिपॉजिट का रिक्वायरमेंट होता है सेक्शन में either before first appellate authority or before tribunal authority. तो वहां पे एक प्रोविजन होता है प्री डिपॉजिट का. व्हाट इज प्री डिपॉजिट इफ एनीवन नोस?
You have to submit a percentage of the disputed sum as a security deposit. अगर हम केस हार गए तो वो forfeit हो जाएगा.
No, that is not true because 10% of the tax demand you have to require to deposit before filing an appeal before first appellate authority and further 10% that is equal to cumulatively 20% for filing appeal before tribunal. So 10% of tax. So अभी तक GST law में सिर्फ 10% of tax was required to be made as pre-deposit. Pre-deposit was not required in case of the demands related to penalty only. So now they have proposing to amend the section and making requirement of pre-deposit in case of demand related to penalty only. जहाँ पे सिर्फ पेनल्टी की डिमांड है वहां पे भी 10% आपको डिपॉजिट करवाना पड़ेगा as a pre-deposit and after pre-deposit your demand will be deemed to be stayed up till the final disposal of your appeal or your case. So this is the amendment related to pre-deposit in relation to penalty. अब यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन आता है कि जहां पे सिर्फ इंटरेस्ट की डिमांड है तो क्या वहां पे रिक्वायर्ड होगा प्री डिपॉजिट? होना नहीं चाहिए वो नहीं है ना, होना तो पेनल्टी भी नहीं चाहिए था. लॉ में अभी तक सिर्फ टैक्स के लिए है और पेनल्टी के लिए नया इन्होंने प्रपोज किया है. तो इंटरेस्ट के ऊपर अगर सिर्फ इंटरेस्ट से रिलेटेड डिमांड है तो एज ऑफ नाउ प्री डिपॉजिट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड फॉर फाइलिंग दी अपील. So next amendment is in relation to appeals filing to the appeals to be filed before appellate tribunal. वो फर्स्ट अपीलेट अथॉरिटी का था और यहाँ पे ट्रिब्यूनल का है। तो ट्रिब्यूनल की केस में भी अगेन आपको अब अगर आप ट्रिब्यूनल में जा रहे हैं तो भी आपको 10% और सॉरी 20% ऑफ पेनल्टी डिमांड यू हैव टू डिपॉजिट एज प्री डिपॉजिट। So next amendment is in relation to the schedule 3. So what is schedule 3 of CBSDA?
Like schedule 3 में जो दे रखा है वो supply mode. Schedule 3 is a statement.
Schedule 3 provides about the activities which is considered neither as a supply of goods nor as a supply of service. So in that schedule, one new entry in entry 8 has been inserted, which talks about the supply of goods warehoused in a special economic zone or in a free traded warehousing zone to any person before clearance for exports or to the domestic tariff area. So what does it mean? If anyone can explain this. Okay, what is SEZ? SEZ तो सुना होगा। तो एक ऐसा स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन जहां पे जो भी इंडस्ट्री एस्टेब्लिश करेगा उनको डायरेक्ट टैक्स में भी और इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स के पर्पस से भी कुछ स्पेशल बेनिफिट्स अलाउ किए जाएंगे। सो फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ जीएसटी इफ यू पीपल नो दैट एनी सप्लाई इज मेड टू द एक्सेप्टेड यूनिट्स is considered as a zero reflex supply. You can export or you can supply to the SEZ unit without payment of IGST if you hold letter of undertaking. So similarly, अगर कोई स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन में किसी का वेयर हाउस है या फिर स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन में कोई यूनिट है जिन्होंने कुछ गुड्स परचेज किया है तो वो अगर वो डोमेस्टिक सप्लाई के लिए या फिर एक्सपोर्ट से पहले अगर उसको किसी को बेच दे दूसरी किसी मतलब FTWZ से FTWZ में सप्लाई होगा बिफोर क्लियरेंस फॉर होम कंजम्पशन, मतलब डोमेस्टिक एरिया में सेल होने के लिए एक्सपोर्ट होने के लिए, तो वो भी that will be considered neither as a supply of goods nor as a supply of service. Earlier before this amendment, subclause A is already there, but that clause only talks about the warehouse, custom bonded warehouse which are situated on the ports. तो सिर्फ क्लॉज ए जो है वो उसकी बात करते हैं जो कस्टम बॉन्डेड वेयर हाउस थे, बट इसीलिए इन्होंने एम्बिग्विटी अब ये थी कि क्या एससीजेड में जो वेयर हाउस है या एफटीडब्ल्यूजेड में वेयर हाउस है वो सप्लाई अगर करेंगे तो क्या वो कवर नहीं होंगे, उनके ऊपर जीएसटी देना पड़ेगा। उसको एम्बिग्विटी को क्लियर करने के लिए इन्होंने रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव अमेंडमेंट किया है विद इफेक्ट फ्रॉम 1 जुलाई 2017 और इसमें स्पेसिफिकली इन्होंने एक्सप्लेनेशन ये डाला है कि भाई इस केस में आपको जो अगर किसी ने कलेक्ट कर लिया टैक्स और पे कर दिया तो रिफंड ऑफ दैट कलेक्टेड टैक्स विल नॉट बी अलाउड टू दी सप्लायर, जैसे कि हर केस में करते हैं जीएसटी में। कभी भी अगर कोई रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव बेनिफिशियल अमेंडमेंट आता है कि जिसकी वजह से ये आपकी सप्लाई को एग्जाम करते हैं, रेट कम करते हैं, तो उस केस में रिफंड दे डोंट अलाउ रिफंड इन दोस केसेस।
560.
Thanks. खत्म होने के बाद
खत्म होने की तालियां स्पीच पे तालियां किस पर है चलो, so today there is no quiz. All are relieved 15 minutes before. Thank you so much. किसी का अटेंडेंस अपने कर दिया? किसी ने